My name is Molly. I'm 32 and married to Justin, who is 35 and works in an office. I'm a freelance fashion designer working from home. At first, my work was unstable with small projects, but then I got a big job with a nice paycheck. This gave Justin and me a chance to move into a fancy apartment. Since I wanted to live in a place like this, I agreed to pay the rent myself. Justin was happy, and I thought everything was going great, but things took an unexpected turn. One day, Justin brought his mom, Betty, over to our apartment. Betty is 65 and had been living alone since her husband passed away 3 years ago. "Hi, Melly," she said. "Hi, Betty, it's been a while, what's going on?" I asked. "Well, she wants to live with us," Justin said awkwardly. "Why?" I was surprised. He explained that Betty's house was old and falling apart, and she didn't have much money. She wanted to move in with us for a while. "Oh, I see," I said, though I wasn't thrilled about it. Our apartment felt like a private space just for the two of us. Betty was almost a stranger to me, so I didn't feel comfortable. "Please," Justin begged, "her house is falling apart. I'll make sure she finds a new place soon." "Okay," I agreed reluctantly, thinking it would only be temporary. A month later, Betty moved in. "Thank you for letting me stay here," she said. "No problem," I replied with a fake smile. "Make yourself at home." "Sorry to ask right away, but can I borrow some money?" she asked. I was surprised. She had just moved in and was already asking for money. "I've been seeing the doctor a lot, and it's expensive. Could you lend me $300? She said. I felt bad but understood that health issues could be costly at her age, so I gave her $650. Then, one day, Justin asked for my advice. "I think we should get a new car," he said. I was shocked. "We just bought a car 2 years ago." "It's too small, we need a bigger one." I didn't see the point. We didn't need a bigger car. It was just for the two of us, well, 3 if you count Betty. "It's because my mom doesn't like it," he explained. "Why does she care about the car?" I was confused. "She wants a nicer car, like a Mercedes," he said. "What? We can't afford that. Does Betty even drive?" I couldn't understand why she was complaining. "I'm not buying an expensive car," I told him. "Tell her to." I didn't see why this was a big deal, but it didn't end there. Betty asked me for money again. "My medical bills are piling up. Could you help me again?" she said. "Should I be worried about your health?" I asked. She hesitated before saying, "Not really, I'm just feeling a little down and having trouble sleeping. The therapist is expensive. I'm really sorry." "How much do you need?" I asked. "About $1,000, she said. I was shocked. Therapy sounded so expensive. "My insurance only covers a few sessions. After that, I have to pay part of the cost," she explained. I was stunned but tried to understand that health treatments could be pricey. Even after that, Betty kept coming up with excuses like medical bills or transportation costs to visit sick friends, all to borrow more money from me. When I realized she had borrowed over $5,000, even though my job was going well, I was getting frustrated. Then, I noticed something strange. One day, I peeked into Betty's room. What? There were designer bags and wallets neatly arranged on the shelf. I couldn't believe my eyes. She said she didn't have money, but how could she afford all these expensive things? She borrowed so much from me but had so many luxury items. I started to wonder if the medical bills were real. A month later, Betty came to ask for money again. "Can I borrow some money?" she asked, acting like it was no big deal. "Wait a second," I said. I had been planning to confront her, so I called Justin, who didn't seem to know what was going on. "I need to ask Betty what she's really spending the money on," I told him. "What's going on, Melly?" Justin asked, clearly confused. "Betty says she's paying for therapy, prescriptions, and..." She trailed off. "It's not just that, right? You've been buying designer bags and clothes, haven't you? Are you really seeing a therapist?" I asked bluntly. "Of course, I am," she replied quickly. "Well, show me the receipts, you must have them, right?" She didn't know how to answer, and I could tell she was caught in a lie. "What are you two talking about?" Justin asked, still confused. "Betty has borrowed over $5,000 from me, and it's all been for things that aren't even real," I said. "Well, even so, you don't need to be so harsh," Justin said. He was always protective of his mom, like a mama's boy. I don't have any receipts. I've been shopping and eating out with friends, Betty finally admitted. I thought to myself, it's crazy that she acts like she has no money, but is buying all this stuff. She wasn't depressed at all, it was all a lie. You need to pay me back right now. Betty looked at me with sad eyes. I can't pay that much back right away, she said. I've had enough, I replied, pointing to her room. You have all this designer stuff in your room. Sell it if you have to, but if not, you need to move out. Justin rushed to her defense. Hey, you're being unfair. She deserves a little luxury too. I wouldn't call borrowing money from me luxury. Over $5,000 is a scam, I snapped. You're being disrespectful, Justin said, upset. Don't act like you're in charge just because you're paying the rent. If you don't like it, you can leave too, I said, my anger boiling over. I glared at Justin, furious. Did I say anything wrong? He asked, confused. You're the one who brought Betty here in the first place. You don't do anything but stay home. Thanks to me, you get to live in this nice place, I snapped. You're so full of yourself. It's infuriating. Get out now. Justin was getting angry too. Fine, don't regret this, he said. He packed up only the essentials and left. I found a new place quickly. Since I worked remotely, I could live anywhere as long as it was comfortable. I didn't need to live in a high-rise. I had no intention of going back to that apartment. The rent was paid by me every month, and I figured Justin wouldn't be able to take over the lease. His paycheck was nowhere near enough to cover it, while my income was much higher. I met with a realtor I'd worked with before. I'm having trouble paying the rent for personal reasons, I told him. I could easily afford it, but I lied on purpose. I'm sorry to hear that. What would you like to do? He asked. I asked him for a favor. A few days later, I got a call from Justin while I was working. What? I answered. What have you done? He shouted. I had the lease cancelled, I said. You know I don't live there anymore. I shouldn't have to pay the rent, he argued. Well, my mom and I still live here, he said. I was shocked and sighed. I don't live there anymore, so why should I keep paying for the apartment? If you're struggling, talk to your mom. Maybe sell some of her stuff to get money, I said sarcastically. Shut up. It was you who wanted to live in a high-rise. If you don't want to move, take over the lease yourself, he yelled. I replied, well, with your salary, I'm sure you can afford it. He was silent for a moment, frustrated. You could probably find a cheap apartment, so why don't you just move in with your mom? I said coldly. Are you crazy? My mom already spent the money from selling her house, and I have no savings. How do you think I can find a new place? He asked, sounding desperate. Not my problem, I said coldly. He had been relying on my income all this time, and yet still had no savings? I realized just how irresponsible both he and his mother were. You deserve this for being so foolish. Figure it out on your own from now on, I said. Are you trying to make us homeless? You're still my wife, he shouted. I told you, deal with it. I'm done with you, goodbye. I hung up. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Betty. Hello? I answered. Melly, I'm so sorry. I'll pay you back. Please don't kick us out, she said, sounding upset. I was shocked and disappointed. I don't want to teach you lessons, but you should live within your means. If you only have a small retirement, then live accordingly. If you want a better life, you have to work for it, I said. As a freelancer, I knew the reality. If I wanted a certain lifestyle, I had to earn it myself instead of depending on others. I'm sorry, Betty said. It's all my fault. I'm sorry, but that apartment has already been rented to someone else. You really need to move out. This is a legal matter, I told her coldly and ended the call. Later, I heard from the realtor that Justin and Betty had begged him, in tears, to keep the lease for them, but he told them a new tenant was moving in, and they had to leave. Even if they stayed, I knew Justin's salary wouldn't cover the rent, and they couldn't afford anything else. It was ridiculous for me to keep paying the rent while Justin was relying on me. He made everything worse by losing his temper, and there was no way back from that. What an idiot. I later learned from mutual acquaintances that they couldn't rent an apartment. They had to move from motel to motel because Justin didn't have enough money for the broker's fee and the deposit, and no one wanted to be his guarantor. Betty had only worked for a short time, so her social security didn't pay much, and they were struggling just to eat. They'd brought all this on themselves. Meanwhile, I managed to land another big project and became more financially comfortable. Looking back at our marriage, I realized that depending on each other too much is not sustainable, whether it's money or living situations. Relying on your partner too much only leads to pain when things go wrong. As for Justin and me, we stayed separated for a while before finally getting divorced. After everything, our feelings had cooled off, and there was no reason to stay together anymore. Now that we're strangers, I feel relieved. If I ever marry again, I'll be more careful. I'll take my time to find the right partner. The divorce taught me a lot about life from different perspectives.
The email glowed on my screen like a burning ember, its subject line searing into my consciousness. Collins Enterprise faces bankruptcy. My fingers trembled as I clicked to open it, a decade of buried memories threatening to surface. My name is Daisy, and 12 years ago my father destroyed my life with 4 words. Get out of my house. I took a deep breath and reached for my coffee, trying to steady my nerves as I scanned the confidential report. Spreadsheets, financial projections, and internal memos painted a clear picture. My father's empire was crumbling. Daisy, Eliza's voice cut through my thoughts as she appeared in my office doorway. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Look at this, I said, turning my laptop toward her. Eliza's heels clicked against the hardwood floor as she circled my desk, her eyes widening as she read. Is this verified? 3 separate sources. I closed the laptop. He's losing everything. Are you okay? Eliza's hand squeezed my shoulder. She was one of the few people who knew my whole story, who'd been there when I'd shown up at her apartment that rainy night, mascara streaking down my face. I'm fine, I lied, standing up and smoothing my skirt. It's just business. But it wasn't just business. It never had been. The memory hit me like a physical blow, standing in my father's study, watching his face contort with rage as he waved the photos in my face, photos of my mother with another man. You knew, he'd roared. You knew about the affair and you said nothing. Dad, I swear I didn't. Don't lie to me. His fist had slammed against his mahogany desk. Your mother confessed everything. You helped her hide it. My own daughter. That's not true, I'd pleaded, but he wouldn't listen. He never listened. My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. A text from Lionel. Did you see the news? Otto's stock is in freefall. We should head to the meeting, Eliza said softly. I nodded, gathering my things. As we walked toward the conference room, employees nodded respectfully. None of them knew that their CEO had once been thrown out onto the street with nothing but a backpack and a few $100s. The board's nervous about the merger, Eliza murmured as we approached the glass doors. Phoebe's been stirring up concerns about risk exposure. Let her, I said, pushing open the door. I've dealt with worse than Phoebe MacDonald. The board members rose as I entered, all except Phoebe, who watched me with barely concealed skepticism. I took my place at the head of the table, feeling the weight of their expectations. Good morning, I began, my voice steady. Before we discuss the merger, there's something you should know. Collins Enterprise is facing imminent bankruptcy. The room erupted in whispers. Phoebe leaned forward, her eyes sharp. And how did you come by this information? I have my sources, I replied coolly. More importantly, this presents an opportunity. Their assets will be undervalued, their clients uncertain. We're perfectly positioned to step in. You mean take advantage of their weakness, Phoebe said. Isn't Collins Enterprise owned by your father? The room fell silent. I met her gaze steadily, years of practice keeping my expression neutral. My personal history with Otto Collins is irrelevant. This is about business. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Lionel. Otto's asking for a meeting. Tomorrow. I felt a smile curve my lips, one that didn't reach my eyes. After 12 years of silence, my father wanted to talk. How fitting that he'd reach out now, when his empire was falling apart. Miss Collins? One of the board members cleared his throat. What exactly are you proposing? I stood, walking to the window that overlooked the city skyline. Somewhere out there was the Collins Enterprise building, its logo still proudly displayed despite the chaos surely unfolding inside. "I'm proposing we make them an offer," I said, turning back to face the board. "One they can't refuse." Phoebe's pen tapped against her notepad. "And you can remain objective about this, given your history." I thought about the night I'd left, about the years of struggling to build myself up from nothing, about the daughter who desperately tried to prove her innocence to a father who wouldn't listen. "Trust me," I said, my voice carrying the weight of 12 years of carefully planned revenge. "I'm exactly objective enough." As the meeting continued, my phone lit up with one final message. This one from Zachariah, my father's lawyer. "He knows he needs you. Don't underestimate his desperation." I slipped the phone back into my pocket, a familiar fire burning in my chest. Otto Collins was about to learn that the daughter he'd thrown away had become the woman who held his fate in her hands. And I intended to make every moment count. "You're playing a dangerous game, Daisy," Lionel's voice carried across my office as he paced, his usually composed demeanor cracking. "Otto may be desperate, but he's still dangerous." I looked up from the stack of financial reports spread across my desk. "So am I." "This isn't just about revenge anymore," he said, stopping to face me. "We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar acquisition. The board's already nervous." "The board will fall in line once they see the numbers." I pushed a folder toward him. "Take a look." Lionel flipped through the pages, his eyebrows rising. "These projections are conservative," I finished. "Even with their current losses, Collins Enterprises' intellectual property alone is worth twice what we'd pay in a hostile takeover." A knock at the door interrupted us. Eliza entered, her face tense. "Phoebe's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. She's questioning your judgment." "Of course she is." I stood walking to the window. The city lights twinkled below, a constellation of possibilities. "Let her question. I've earned my position here. By becoming exactly what your father accused you of being." Lionel's words hit like a slap. I spun around. "Excuse me?" He held up his hands. "I'm on your side, Daisy. Always have been. But using insider information, leveraging personal connections, it's exactly what he claimed you did with your mother's affair." "That was different," I snapped. "I was innocent then." "And now?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID made my heart skip. Zachariah. "Put it on speaker," Eliza suggested. I answered, placing the phone on my desk. "This is Daisy." "Your father's condition for tomorrow's meeting," Zachariah's voice crackled through the speaker. "He wants it at the house." The house. My childhood home. The place I'd been thrown out of 12 years ago. "Absolutely not," Eliza interjected. "That's completely inappropriate for a business meeting." "It's not a business meeting," Zachariah replied. "Not really. And you know it, Daisy." I caught Lionel's eye. He gave a slight nod. "Fine," I said. "Tell him I'll be there at noon." After hanging up, silence filled the office. Eliza broke it first. "You can't go alone." "Yes, I can. And I will." I gathered my papers into my briefcase. "But first, we need to handle Phoebe." "I might have something that could help," Lionel said, pulling out his tablet. "Remember that merger she pushed through last year? The one that seemed too good to be true?" He pulled up a series of documents, and as we read through them, a plan began to form. By midnight, we had everything we needed. The next morning, I walked into the board meeting wearing my sharpest suit and my coldest smile. Phoebe sat near the head of the table, practically vibrating with righteous indignation. "Before we begin," I announced, "I'd like to address the concerns about my objectivity regarding Collins Enterprise." "Concerns is putting it mildly," Phoebe interrupted. "You're letting personal vendetta drive business decisions." I placed a folder in front of each board member. Inside, you'll find detailed financial projections for the acquisition, along with something else interesting: documentation of insider trading related to the Maxwell merger last year. Phoebe's face went white. "I believe," I continued smoothly, "the board member who orchestrated that deal should recuse themselves from questioning anyone else's judgment." The room erupted in whispers as Phoebe gathered her things and fled. I remained standing, waiting for the chaos to settle. Any other concerns about my leadership? Silence answered me. One by one, the board members shook their heads. After the meeting, Lionel caught up with me in the hallway. That was brutal. That was necessary, I corrected. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lunch meeting to prepare for. Daisy. He caught my arm. Whatever happens at the house, remember who you are now, not who you were then. I pulled away gently. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Back in my office, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the only photo I had from before. My father and me at my college graduation, both smiling, his arm around my shoulders. It was taken 3 weeks before everything fell apart. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Heard about Otto's troubles. Be careful, sweetheart. He's not the man we knew. I hadn't spoken to her in years, not since she'd moved across the country with her new husband. Her betrayal had cost me everything, yet somehow she'd escaped the fallout unscathed. Neither am I texted back, then blocked her number. Eliza appeared in my doorway. Car's ready. Last chance to let me come with you. I shook my head, standing and gathering my things. This is between me and him. As I stepped into the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls. Gone was the terrified 20-year-old girl who'd been thrown out into the rain. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with a smile and a legally binding contract. The doors closed, and I began my descent toward the confrontation 12 years in the making. The iron gates of my childhood home creaked open as my car approached. The sound sent a shiver down my spine. They never used to creak. My father had always insisted on impeccable maintenance. I parked in the circular driveway, my modern BMW looking out of place among the manicured gardens that had once been my mother's pride and joy. Now they were overgrown, roses climbing wildly over their trellises. "Ms. Collins," a voice called out. Martha, our old housekeeper, hurried down the front steps. Her hair had gone completely grey, but her eyes were just as kind as I remembered. "Martha," my voice cracked as she pulled me into a tight hug. "I didn't know you still worked here." "Someone has to look after him," she whispered, pulling back to study my face. "You look just like your mother." I flinched. "Is he inside?" "In the study. Where else?" She squeezed my hand. "He's been in there all morning, going through old papers." The front door opened with the same gentle creak it always had, and the familiar scent of lemon polish and old wood wrapped around me. Family photos still lined the entrance hall, but I noticed all the ones featuring my mother or me had been removed, leaving conspicuous empty spaces on the walls. "Would you like some tea?" Martha asked. "No, thank you. I'd rather get this over with." I climbed the stairs, my heels sinking into the thick carpet. At the top, I paused outside my old bedroom. The door was closed, probably locked. I wondered if everything was still exactly as I'd left it that night. "It's exactly the same," Martha said softly behind me. "He never let anyone touch it." Before I could respond, a voice boomed from down the hall. "Is that her?" I turned to see my father standing in the doorway of his study. He'd aged more than I'd expected. His hair now completely white, his tall frame slightly stooped. But his eyes were as sharp as ever. "Hello, Father." He didn't respond, just turned and walked back into his study. I followed, noting the empty whiskey bottles on his desk that Martha hadn't managed to clear away yet. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to one of the leather chairs facing his desk, the same chairs where I'd sat countless times before, learning about business at his knee, before everything went wrong. "I prefer to stand." "Still stubborn," he muttered, lowering himself into his chair. "Just like your mother." "I'm not here to discuss Mom." I placed my briefcase on his desk. "I'm here to discuss the future of Collins' enterprise." He laughed, a harsh sound with no humour in it. "The vultures are circling already. My own daughter, coming to pick at the carcass of my life's work. You gave up the right to call me your daughter 12 years ago." I pulled out a stack of papers. "These are the terms of our offer. It's more than fair, considering your company's current position." He didn't even glance at the documents. "Do you remember what I taught you about hostile takeovers? "Always know your opponent's weakness," I quoted. "You taught me well." "Too well, it seems." He stood up, walking to the window. "Did you know your mother calls me sometimes, late at night, when she's had too much wine, begs for forgiveness?" I gritted my teeth. "Sign the papers, Otto." He turned at the use of his first name, pain flashing across his face. "You really hate me that much?" "Hate requires emotion. This is business." "Is it?" He pulled open a drawer and took out a thick envelope. "Then why did you help her hide it? All those secret meetings, the mysterious phone calls. You were my daughter, my heir. Why did you betray me?" "I never betrayed you." The words burst out before I could stop them. "I knew nothing about her affair. Nothing." "Then explain this." He tossed the envelope onto the desk. Photos spilled out. Surveillance photos of me meeting with my mother at various cafes and restaurants in the months before everything fell apart. "Those meetings." I picked up one of the photos, remembering. "She was planning your birthday party, a surprise party. That's all it was," he scoffed, a convenient excuse. "It's the truth." I pulled my phone out and scrolled through old emails, finding one from 12 years ago. "Look, the receipt for the vintage car she bought you. The one you'd wanted since college. That's what all those meetings were about." His hands trembled as he took my phone, reading the email. "But she said..." "She lied." I snatched the phone back. "She needed a scapegoat, and I was convenient. And you were so ready to believe the worst of me." The grandfather clock in the corner chimed noon, its deep tones filling the heavy silence between us. "The offer expires at 5 p.m. today," I said, straightening my jacket. "Your board has already provisionally approved it. It's the only way to save what's left of the company." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. "The car," he said quietly. "I never even drove it. Had it towed away the day after you left." I didn't turn around. 5 p.m., Otto. Don't make me do this the hard way." As I walked back down the stairs, Martha was waiting with tears in her eyes. "You grew up strong, little one." "I had to," I replied, pushing past her into the bright afternoon sun, leaving the ghosts of my past behind in that dusty old house. But as I drove away, I couldn't shake the image of those empty spaces on the walls, waiting to be filled again. "He's here." Eliza's voice crackled through my office intercom at exactly 4:30 p.m. "And he's not alone." I straightened in my chair, smoothing my skirt. "Who's with him?" "Zachariah. And they're carrying a large briefcase." "Send them in." The door opened and my father walked in, looking even more haggard than he had at the house. Zachariah followed, clutching a worn leather briefcase that I recognized from my childhood, the one my father had always said contained his most important documents. "Cutting it close," I said, gesturing to the chairs across from my desk. "You have 30 minutes until the deadline." "We're not here to sign your takeover agreement," Zachariah said, placing the briefcase on my desk with surprising gentleness. "Then you're wasting my time." I reached for my phone. "I'll have security escort you out." "Daisy," my father's voice cracked. "Please, just look inside." Something in his tone made me pause. I'd never heard him say please before, not once in my life. "What's in it?" "The truth," Zachariah answered, opening the briefcase and pulling out a thick manila envelope. "About everything that happened 12 years ago." My hand trembled as I took the envelope. "I already know what happened. Mom had an affair, and you needed someone to blame." "Read it," my father insisted. "All of it." I pulled out the contents: photographs, letters, bank statements, and what looked like private investigator reports. The first photo made my blood run cold. It showed my mother meeting with a man I didn't recognize, but it wasn't in a romantic setting. They were in what appeared to be an underground parking garage. "Keep going," Zachariah urged. The next document was a bank statement showing regular transfers from my mother's private account to an offshore number. Large transfers. The dates aligned perfectly with her supposed affair. "I don't understand," I muttered, spreading the papers across my desk. "Your mother wasn't having an affair," my father said quietly. "She was being blackmailed." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" The man in those photos worked for our biggest competitor at the time, Zachariah explained. He had evidence that could have destroyed your father's company, evidence of some questionable dealings from the early days. My father stood up, pacing the office. Your mother discovered it first. Instead of coming to me, she tried to handle it herself. Protect me. Protect the company. But you said... I shuffled through more photos, seeing my mother looking increasingly distressed in each one. I found out about the meetings, the money transfers, jumped to conclusions. He stopped at the window, staring out at the city skyline. When I confronted her, she let me believe the affair story, said it would be better that way. Better than what? Better than the truth coming out. Zachariah pulled out another document. This would have sent your father to prison. Your mother knew that. So she sacrificed herself, I whispered. But why did you blame me? My father turned back, his eyes red. Because she convinced me you were helping her hide the affair. Said you were covering for her because you were angry at me for never being home, always working. It made sense at the time. You two were always so close, and you believed her. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Without even asking me. I was a fool. He sank back into the chair. By the time I discovered the truth, you were gone. Your mother had moved away, and I was too proud to admit I'd been wrong. The office fell silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. 4:45 p.m. Why now? I asked finally. Why tell me this after all these years? Because, Zachariah said, your mother is back in town. And she's demanding control of her shares in Collins Enterprise. Shares she's not entitled to, my father added. Not after what she did, but with the company vulnerable. She could force a sale to our competitors, I finished, understanding dawning. The same ones who blackmailed her. Yes. My father pulled out one final document. This is a different proposal, not a hostile takeover, but a merger. Equal partnership. I stared at the paper, my carefully planned revenge crumbling around me. And what about the truth? Do we just bury it again? No. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here. What your mother did, what I did to you. Release it however you want. I deserve whatever comes. The clock struck 4:50 p.m. In 10 minutes, I could destroy him completely. Take everything he'd built. It was what I'd planned for 12 years. Instead, I found myself asking, does Mom know you're here? No, Zachariah answered. She's meeting with the board tomorrow morning. I picked up the merger proposal, scanning its terms. Give me your phone. My father handed it over without question. I punched in a number I'd memorized years ago but never used. Who are you calling? He asked. Martha, I replied, my voice steady. Tell her to get my old room ready. We're going to need somewhere to work late tonight if we're going to stop Mom's plan. For the first time in 12 years, I saw my father smile. A real smile, tinged with hope and regret in equal measure. The clock ticked toward 5 as we began to plan. The study looked different in the middle of the night. Shadows danced across the walls as I pored over years of financial records, my laptop casting a blue glow across the antique desk. Found something, I called out, and both my father and Zachariah hurried over. Look at these transactions, every quarter like clockwork. Shell companies, my father muttered, leaning closer, all leading back to Global Pacific Holdings, Zachariah finished. Your mother's new husband's company. I sat back, rubbing my tired eyes. She planned this from the beginning. The blackmail, the fake affair, everything. It was all about getting access to Collins Enterprise. A gentle knock interrupted us. Martha entered with a fresh pot of coffee and sandwiches. You need to eat, she insisted, setting the tray down. Been at this for hours. Martha, I said suddenly, do you remember that night? When I left? She paused, her hand trembling slightly as she poured coffee. Of course, dear. Horrible night. Your mother was so calm about it all. Too calm, now that I think about it. What do you mean? Well, Martha glanced at my father apologetically. Most women who've been caught in an affair show some emotion, guilt, shame, something. But your mother, she was almost relieved. Because it worked, my father said quietly. Her plan worked perfectly. I opened another file on my laptop. Not perfectly. She didn't count on me building my own company, or on you keeping her shares locked up in trust. Speaking of which, Zachariah pulled out his phone. My contact at the SEC just confirmed it. Your mother's new husband has been quietly buying up Collins Enterprise stock through various fronts. They're just shy of a controlling interest. If tomorrow's board meeting goes their way... I didn't need to finish the sentence. My father slammed his fist on the desk. 12 years. She spent 12 years setting this up. And used me as the perfect distraction, I added bitterly. While you were busy disowning me, she was laying the groundwork. Martha touched my shoulder gently. There's something else you should know. The night you left, after you'd gone, I overheard your mother on the phone. We all turned to look at her. She was speaking to someone about phase 1 being complete. Said something about the girl being out of the way. Martha's eyes filled with tears. I should have said something sooner. It wouldn't have mattered, my father said. I was too blind to see anything then. I stood up, pacing the room. The board meeting's in 6 hours. We need proof, something concrete to show them. Wait! Zachariah started rifling through the old briefcase. There was something... Here! He pulled out a yellowed envelope. Your mother's original blackmail evidence against the company. The stuff she claimed would send you to prison. My father took the envelope with shaking hands. I never actually saw what she had, just took her word for it. I watched as he opened it, spreading the contents across the desk. His expression changed from fear to confusion to anger. These are forgeries, he said finally. Amateur ones at that. Any half-decent forensic accountant would have spotted it immediately. She played you, I whispered. There was never any real evidence. But why go through such an elaborate scheme? Martha asked. Why not just... Because of me, I realized. I was next in line to run the company. She needed me gone, needed you broken, so when the time came, the company would be vulnerable, my father finished. And she'd swoop in with her new husband's resources to save it. Zachariah was already on his phone. I can have a forensic team here in an hour to authenticate these forgeries. If we can prove she knowingly used false documents for blackmail... No, I said, an idea forming. We need to let her play her hand. What do you mean? I pulled up my email and started typing. We're going to give her exactly what she wants. A chance to tell her story to the board. My father read over my shoulder as I wrote. You're inviting her to present first. That's risky. Trust me, I said, then caught myself remembering the last 12 years. I do, he said quietly. Trust you. Now, I hit send and turned to face them all. Martha, we'll need breakfast for 15 in the main dining room at 8 a.m. Zachariah, get those documents to your forensic team, but tell them to wait for my signal. Father, I paused. How good are your acting skills? What did you have in mind? I smiled, thinking of all the business lessons he'd taught me over the years. Remember what you always said about the element of surprise? He nodded slowly, a glimmer of the old Otto Collins returning to his eyes. The best trap is the one your enemy walks into willingly. Exactly. I checked my watch. Now, let's get ready. We have a performance to prepare for. As Martha hurried off to make arrangements, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time in 12 years, I saw my father's daughter looking back at me. But this time, instead of running from that legacy, I was going to use it to save everything he'd built, and make my mother regret the day she'd tried to destroy us both. The morning sun streamed through the dining room windows as board members filed in, their faces a mix of confusion and curiosity. My father sat at the head of the table, playing his part perfectly, shoulders slumped, tie slightly askew, the very picture of a defeated man. Is this really appropriate? Phoebe whispered as she passed me. Having a board meeting in your father's house. Just wait, I murmured back, checking my phone. A text from Eliza. Your mother just pulled up. Black Mercedes, 2 men with her. Right on schedule. The dining room doors opened and there she was. Penelope Collins, looking exactly as I remembered. Elegant, poised, and completely lethal. Her new husband, Richard, followed close behind, along with their lawyer. "Well," my mother said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "This is certainly nostalgic, Penelope," my father acknowledged weakly, not meeting her eyes. "Perfect performance." "Otto." She turned to me, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Daisy, darling, you've done well for yourself." "Let's skip the family reunion," I replied coldly. "You called this meeting. The floor is yours." She gracefully took her position at the opposite end of the table, Richard standing supportively behind her. "As you all know, I hold significant shares in Collins Enterprise. Given the company's current difficulties, I believe it's time for a change in leadership." The board members shifted uncomfortably. My father stared down at his hands. "My husband's company, Global Pacific Holdings, is prepared to offer a generous bailout package," she continued smoothly. "In exchange for controlling interest, of course." "And what about existing shareholders?" one board member asked. "They'll be well compensated," Richard stepped in. "We've prepared a full presentation." "Before we continue," I interrupted, standing up, "I have some questions about the timing of all this." My mother's smile tightened slightly. "Timing?" "Yes. It seems convenient that you've waited until now to exercise your shareholder rights, almost as if you've been planning this for, 12 years? "I don't know what you're implying," she said, but I caught the slight tremor in her hand as she reached for her water glass. "Don't you?" I nodded to Zachariah, who started distributing folders to everyone present. These documents tell an interesting story about blackmail, forged evidence, and a very long con. Richard leaned down to whisper something in my mother's ear, but she waved him off. "Ancient history," she declared. "What matters is the present and the fact that this company needs saving." Funny you should mention saving. I clicked a remote, and the dining room's hidden projector screen descended. Because I have some recent history to share as well. Security camera footage began playing, showing my mother and Richard in various meetings over the past year, with competitors, with short sellers, with people who had no business meeting a woman who claimed to be a disconnected shareholder. "You've been deliberately undermining the company," I stated flatly, "creating the very crisis you're now offering to solve." "That's ridiculous," Richard snapped. "These meetings were about orchestrating a hostile takeover," I finished. "Or about completing the plan that started 12 years ago with a fake affair and a forged set of documents." My mother's composure finally cracked. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually," my father spoke up, his voice stronger now, "we can. The SEC has been very interested in the trading patterns around our recent stock decline, particularly the short positions taken by certain shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands." The board members were openly staring now, documents spread before them, watching the drama unfold. "You're bluffing," my mother said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. I pulled out one final envelope. "This is a copy of a recorded conversation between you and your blackmail target from 12 years ago. The original is already with the FBI. Would you like me to play it for everyone?" She stood so quickly her chair toppled backward. "This is absurd. Richard, we're leaving." "Mrs. Collins," one of the board members called out, "if you leave now, we'll have no choice but to vote to freeze your shares pending investigation." She froze, hand on the doorknob. For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "There's another option," I said quietly. "Sign over your shares to the company trust. Walk away clean. No charges, no investigation." "You wouldn't dare pursue charges," she hissed. "It would destroy the company's reputation." "Try me." I met her gaze steadily. "I learned from the best after all. Isn't that what you wanted? To teach me about power and control?" The room held its breath as my mother looked from me to my father, to the board members, and finally to Richard, who was already edging towards the door. "The papers," she said finally. her voice hollow. Where do I sign? As Zachariah produced the documents, I caught my father's eye across the table. He gave me the smallest nod, pride and regret mingling in his expression. The mighty Penelope Collins signed away her shares with trembling hands, then fled the room without another word, leaving Richard to hurry after her like a forgotten afterthought. Well, Phoebe broke the silence, I believe we still have a merger to discuss. I smiled, sitting back down. Yes, we do. And I think you'll find our new proposal much more interesting than a hostile takeover. The morning sun continued to stream through the windows as we began to rebuild what my mother had tried so hard to destroy. The merger documents are ready, Zachariah announced, placing a thick stack of papers on my father's desk. The study felt different now, warmer somehow, as afternoon light filtered through the freshly cleaned windows. Before we sign, my father said, there's something I need to show you. He walked to the far wall and pressed a hidden panel, revealing a small safe I'd never known existed. What are you doing? I asked, watching as he spun the combination. Something I should have done 12 years ago. He pulled out a leather-bound book. This is your grandmother's diary. She made me promise to give it to you when you took over the company. But you never did. No. He handed it to me, his hands shaking slightly, because it contains the truth about how I built this company, the real truth. I opened the diary, scanning the neat handwriting. Dad, your mother wasn't entirely wrong about there being secrets, he continued. Your grandmother, she knew everything, kept records of every deal, every compromise, every line I crossed. Zachariah cleared his throat. Perhaps I should step out. No, my father said firmly. You need to hear this too. We're merging our companies, Daisy. You deserve to know exactly what you're inheriting. I read through the pages, my heart sinking with each revelation. Questionable land deals, environmental corners cut, competitors sabotaged. The empire I'd spent years trying to take over had been built on a foundation of sand. Why show me this now? I asked, closing the diary. Because I don't want to make the same mistake twice. He sat heavily in his chair. Secrets destroyed this family once. I won't let them do it again. A knock at the door interrupted us. Eliza entered, looking concerned. Sorry to interrupt, but there's something you both need to see. She turned on the study's television. A news anchor was mid-sentence. Shocking allegations against Global Pacific Holdings. Sources claim the company has been involved in systematic market manipulation. Mother's revenge, I muttered. She's taking Richard down with her. Not just him, Eliza said. They're naming names. Lots of them, including some of our major shareholders. My father stood up. This could tank both companies before we even complete the merger. Unless... I picked up my grandmother's diary. Unless we get ahead of it. What are you suggesting? Full disclosure. I met his eyes. Everything. The old secrets, the recent manipulation, all of it. But we control the narrative. That's corporate suicide, Zachariah protested. No, my father said slowly. It's brilliant. We paint it as a generational transformation. The old guard giving way to new leadership, new values. I nodded. We take the hit now, on our terms, rather than death by 1,000 cuts, as these revelations leak out. The stock will plummet, Eliza warned. Let it, I said. We've got enough liquid assets between both companies to weather the storm. And when it's over, we'll be the only ones left standing, my father finished, because we chose to fall first. The next hour was a blur of activity. Lawyers were called, press releases drafted, statements prepared. Through it all, my father and I worked side by side, finishing each other's sentences like we used to when I was young. There's one more thing, he said as we finished the final draft. The house. I want you to have it. I looked up, surprised. What? Not as a peace offering or manipulation, he added quickly, but because it's where you belong, where we belong. I have my own place, I started to say, but Martha chose that moment to appear with coffee. Oh, good, she said, setting down the tray. You're finally talking about the house. I've kept your room ready all these years, you know. Martha, don't argue with me, young lady. This house has been too empty for too long. She gave me a stern look that transported me right back to childhood. Besides, someone needs to make sure you both actually eat proper meals while you're saving the company. A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me, surprising us all. Soon my father joined in, then Eliza and Zachariah, even Martha. The tension of the day dissolved in that moment of shared mirth. Okay, I said finally, wiping my eyes. Okay, I'll think about it. Good, my father picked up his pen. Now, shall we sign these merger documents before the press conference? I reached for my own pen, then paused. One condition. Name it. We keep grandmother's diary in the company archives, available to any employee who wants to read it. He didn't hesitate. Agreed. As we signed our names, I thought about the girl I'd been 12 years ago running out into the rain. She'd wanted revenge, wanted to destroy everything her father had built. Instead, I was helping to rebuild it, stronger and more honest than before. Ready? Eliza asked, checking her watch. The press is gathering downstairs. I stood, straightening my jacket. Ready. My father moved to my side, and together we walked toward the study door, toward whatever storm was coming. Behind us, Martha began humming as she cleared away the coffee cups, a sound as familiar as the house itself. We were ready to face the truth, whatever the cost. The morning headlines screamed across every business publication. Collins Enterprises and rival merge, CEO reveals decades of corporate secrets. I set my coffee mug on my old bedroom desk, now converted into a home office, and opened my laptop to check the stock prices. Don't, Eliza called from the doorway. Give it at least a week before you start obsessing over numbers. Too late, I replied, turning the screen to show her. We're down 40%. Exactly as predicted. She sat on the edge of my desk. The shareholders who jumped ship are exactly the ones we wanted to lose. My phone buzzed. A message from Lionel. Just got out of the board meeting. Everyone's on board with the transparency initiative, even Phoebe. A knock at the door interrupted my reply. My father stood there, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years, despite the chaos swirling around us. The SEC called, he said. They're formally investigating Global Pacific Holdings. Your mother and Richard have apparently left the country. Running won't help them, Eliza noted. Not with the evidence we provided. No, I agreed. It won't. I closed my laptop decisively. But that's not our problem anymore. Martha's voice echoed up the stairs. Breakfast is ready, and the newspaper wants to know if you're available for an interview. We headed downstairs to find the dining room table covered with papers, laptops, and Martha's infamous breakfast spread. Zachariah was already there, typing furiously on his phone. The small shareholders are organizing, he reported. They want to know if we'll protect their interests during the stock decline. Show them the stabilization plan, my father said, reaching for the coffee pot. Full transparency, remember? I grabbed a piece of toast and pulled up our presentation. We should live stream the next shareholders' meeting. Let everyone see how we're handling this. Speaking of handling things, Eliza interjected, have you seen the employee messages? She handed me her tablet. The company forum was flooded with responses to our revelation of the corporate secrets. But instead of the outrage we'd expected, most expressed appreciation for the honesty. They're calling it a new era of corporate responsibility, my father read over my shoulder. Never thought I'd see the day. Well, Martha said, refilling coffee cups, truth has a way of setting things right. A new message popped up on my phone. From my mother's private number. You've destroyed everything we worked for. I hope you're happy. I showed it to my father. He took the phone, typed a quick response, and handed it back. I read what he'd written. No, we're building something better. Goodbye, Penelope. Perfect, I said, hitting send and blocking the number. Zachariah cleared his throat. The press is asking about the family angle. They want to know how you two reconciled. Tell them the truth, my father said, surprising me. Tell them it took losing everything to realize what really mattered. And what's that? I asked softly. He met my eyes across the table. Trust. The kind that has to be earned, not demanded. Martha sniffled quietly in the corner, pretending to be very interested in arranging pastries. The market's about to open, Eliza reminded us. Ready to face whatever comes next? I looked around the table, at Eliza's unwavering support, Zachariah's steady competence, Martha's maternal presence, and my father's newfound humility. This was what winning really looked like. Not destroying an enemy, but building something worth protecting. Actually, I said, standing up, I think we should go to the office. Show everyone we're not hiding. Good idea, my father agreed. But first, he walked to the study and returned with grandmother's diary. This belongs in the lobby display case, where everyone can see it. Along with today's papers, I added. Show them how far we've come. As we gathered our things to leave, Martha caught my arm. You're staying for dinner tonight, yes? Both of you? I glanced at my father, who nodded. Wouldn't miss it, I said. Outside, the morning sun painted the garden in shades of gold. The roses my mother had planted were still there, but now they grew alongside new varieties. Ones Martha had chosen, wild and colourful and free. Ready? My father asked, keys in hand. 1 second. I pulled out my phone and deleted the old photo of my college graduation, the last picture of our fractured family. Instead, I snapped a new one, the house in morning light, the garden blooming, and our shadows stretched across the lawn, standing together. Now I'm ready, I said. As we drove toward the office, toward whatever challenges awaited, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't healed my wounds. Truth had. And truth, unlike revenge, left room for something new to grow. The company would survive. The family, what was left of it, would heal. And I had finally found what I'd been looking for all along. Not victory over my father, but victory alongside him. Martha was right. Truth does have a way of setting things right. And sometimes it takes losing everything to find what you never knew you needed.
You've always been so emotional, Clara. That's why this decision is better left to people who can be more objective. Sylvia's words dropped like ice cubes into hot oil, splattering my chest with invisible burns. I stared at her across the long mahogany dining table, the kind with a centerpiece no one ever touches and chairs no one ever relaxes in. Her pearls gleamed under the chandelier, and her smile was so polite it made me want to scream. My name is Clara, and I've sat through a lot of fake dinners in this house. But tonight I knew something was coming. I just didn't know how far they'd go. Samuel sat next to me, his hand resting on my thigh like a paperweight. I could feel the heat of his palm, but not the comfort. He wasn't looking at me. He was watching his father, who was unfolding a stack of papers with a slow, deliberate precision, like they were sacred. Martin cleared his throat. We've been thinking about Lisa's care fund. It's a substantial amount, and with the right oversight, it could go even further. I blinked. Further than what? It's not an investment portfolio. It's for her therapy, her equipment, her... Exactly, Sylvia cut in, nodding like it was her idea. And we can help with that. We know people. We can maximize its potential. I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. Maximize? She's not a business venture. She's my sister. Samuel finally looked at me. Clara, no one's saying she isn't, but you're too close to this. You're not thinking long term. I turned to him slowly. You mean like when I changed her feeding tubes at 2 a.m. for 6 years? Or when I fought the insurance company for 6 months to cover her new wheelchair? That kind of too close. His jaw tensed. You're being defensive. And you're being a coward, I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. The room went silent except for the faint clinking of Sylvia's fork against her untouched salad. Martin slid the papers toward me. This is just a transfer of guardianship over the fund. You'll still be her legal guardian. But the financial side, well, it's better handled by professionals. Professionals like you? I asked, my voice flat. Sylvia's smile didn't falter. It's not personal, dear. It's just what's best for Lisa. I looked down at the papers. The legalese blurred together, but I recognized the structure. They wanted control of the trust, full financial authority, and they thought I'd just hand it over. Samuel's hand pressed harder against my leg. "Clara, sign it." I turned to him. "Just like that?" He nodded. "It's not a big deal." I stared at him. Really stared. The man I married. The man who once said he loved how fiercely I protected Lisa. The man who now sat beside me, siding with people who saw my sister as a liability. I reached for the pen. Sylvia's eyes lit up. "You're doing the right thing." I signed. One stroke at a time. My signature neat and slow, like I had all the time in the world. When I finished, I looked up and smiled. "You're right," I said, handing the papers back. "It's better this way." Sylvia exhaled like she'd just won a war. "You won't regret this." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Oh, I'm sure I won't." Samuel looked relieved. "See? That wasn't so hard." I leaned down, kissed him lightly on the cheek. "Not hard at all." Then I picked up my phone from under the napkin beside my plate, slid it into my purse, and walked out of the dining room. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't know that 2 weeks ago, I found encrypted messages between Samuel and his parents, that I'd seen the bank account inquiries, the subtle shifts in his behavior, the way he started asking about Lisa's expenses like it was his business. They didn't know I'd already moved the money. They didn't know I'd already restructured the fund under a bulletproof trust, with a lawyer who specialized in disability protections. And they definitely didn't know that the entire dinner, every word, every manipulative suggestion, every smug little nudge, was recorded. I stepped into the cool night air, the quiet hum of crickets greeting me like old friends. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, from rage, from clarity, from the kind of calm that comes right before the storm. I got into my car, started the engine, and called Iris. "It's done," I said. She whistled. "You signed?" "Yep." "And the recording?" "Crystal clear, every word." There was a pause. "You okay?" I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were steady, my mouth a line of steel. "They think they won," I said. "Let them," Iris replied. I hung up and drove home. Lisa was already asleep when I got in. Her breathing was soft and rhythmic, the kind of sound that reminded me why I fought so hard. I sat beside her bed, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "They think they can take you from me," I whispered. "But they don't know who they're dealing with." I kissed her cheek and stood up. Tomorrow the real game would begin. The first time I noticed something was off, Samuel left his phone face down on the kitchen counter. He never did that, not unless he was hiding something. I was chopping vegetables for dinner, Lisa humming softly in her chair behind me, when his phone lit up. The preview flashed a name I didn't recognize, M. Harris. And a message. "She doesn't suspect a thing. I'll get her to sign by next week." I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. That one message told me everything. That night, after Samuel fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and called Iris. "You were right," I whispered into the phone. "They're planning something." "Okay," she said, instantly alert. "We're not waiting. I'm putting you in touch with someone tomorrow. Trust me, you'll want him on your side." The next day, I met Duncan in a small office above a bakery downtown. No fancy suits, no marble floors, just a man in rolled-up sleeves and a shelf full of disability law books. He shook my hand firmly. "Iris said you're in a situation." I slid a folder across the table. "My sister's trust fund. My husband and his parents are trying to take control of it. They say I'm too emotional to manage it." Duncan opened the folder, flipping through the documents. "Is your sister under your legal guardianship?" "Yes, fully." I've been her caregiver since we lost our parents. He nodded. Then they don't have a leg to stand on. But we're not just going to defend. We're going to make sure they can't touch a penny. He explained the steps. We'd restructure the fund into a special needs trust, fully protected and legally insulated. I'd remain the sole trustee, with built-in oversight to satisfy any court. And best of all, completely invisible to anyone who wasn't authorized. They'll think they've won, Duncan said, tapping the table. Let them. That's when they get sloppy. I signed the documents with shaking hands. Not from fear, from adrenaline. Back at home, I started planting seeds. I left my phone out more often. I asked Samuel vague questions about money. I acted confused when he mentioned long-term planning. I let him think I was tired, overwhelmed, vulnerable. And I installed voice recorders, one under the dining room table, another in the living room lamp, a third in my home office, tucked behind a stack of books. I didn't care about the ethics. They were coming for Lisa's future. There was no line I wouldn't cross. A week later, I met Iris at our usual coffee spot. You ready for this? She asked, sipping her iced latte. They're planning a dinner, I said. Sylvia invited me like it was a casual get-together, but I know they're going to pull the trigger. Iris smirked. You going to let them? Oh, I'm going to let them think they did. We went over the plan again. I'd sign the papers, smile, play the part, then let them walk straight into the trap. The night of the dinner, I dressed carefully. Conservative, soft colors. Nothing that said war. I tucked my phone under a napkin on the table before anyone else arrived. The recorder was already running. Samuel kissed my cheek like everything was normal. Sylvia complimented my dress. Martin poured wine. It was all rehearsed. A performance. And I played my role perfectly. When they slid the papers across the table, I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I signed with a smile, handed the pen back, and watched their faces light up like they'd just won the lottery. They had no idea the money was already gone. That night, after I left the Harris estate, I went home and backed up everything. The audio files, the signed documents, the messages from Samuel's phone I'd quietly photographed. I sent copies to Iris, to Duncan, to a secure cloud folder only I could access. Lisa was asleep again when I walked into her room. I sat on the edge of her bed and took her hand. They think they're clever, I said softly, but they're not. She squeezed my fingers, just once, her way of saying she understood. The next morning, I made pancakes. Lisa giggled when I flipped one too high, and it almost hit the ceiling. I was still laughing when Samuel walked into the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, his face pale. What's wrong? I asked, loading syrup onto a plate. He didn't answer. Just stared at me, then at Lisa, then back at me. I knew that look. They'd called the bank and found nothing. Everything okay? I asked again, sweet as sugar. He hung up without a word and walked out. I turned back to Lisa, cutting her pancake into small pieces. Game on, I whispered. Samuel's voice echoed down the hallway before I even saw him. What do you mean there's no access? That's impossible. I stood in the kitchen, calmly drying a plate. Lisa was in the living room, watching her favorite cartoon, oblivious to the storm brewing in the next room. He stormed in, phone still pressed to his ear. Yes, I'm the secondary contact. My wife signed over the authority last night. Check again. He paused, listening, then slammed the phone onto the counter. They said the account's locked, that there's no record of the transfer. I raised an eyebrow. That's strange. Samuel turned on me. What did you do? I signed the papers, remember? Just like you asked. He stepped closer. Don't play dumb. That money was supposed to be moved. Was it? I said, folding the towel slowly. Because from what I remember, it was for Lisa's care, not for your parents to play Monopoly with. His jaw clenched. You lied. No, I said, meeting his eyes. I protected my sister. Before he could answer, the front door burst open. Sylvia and Martin walked in like they owned the place. "Where is she?" Sylvia snapped. "Excuse me?" I said, walking toward them. "The trust. You said you transferred it." "I signed your papers," I said lightly. "But I never said they meant anything." Martin's face turned red. "You forged your signature?" "Nope. I signed them. But the trust was restructured weeks ago. Legally. Irrevocably. You have no access." Sylvia's voice cracked. "That's fraud." I laughed. "Is it? Because I have a lawyer who says otherwise. And I have recordings." Her face twisted. "What recordings?" "From last night. From your little speech about how I'm too emotional to make decisions. From the part where you all admitted you were planning this for weeks." Samuel looked like he'd been punched. "You recorded us?" I walked to my office, opened the drawer, and pulled out a small speaker. I hit play.
Sylvia's voice filled the room. "She's too attached. We'll handle it better. This is for the best." Then Martin. "She won't fight it. She's not that smart." Then Samuel. "She'll sign. I'll make sure of it." I hit stop. Silence. Sylvia's hands were shaking. "You can't use that in court." I smiled. "Actually, I can. I consulted a lawyer before I did anything. Everything was done under legal guidance. You might want to brush up on the laws around consent and financial manipulation."
Martin stepped forward. "You're going to regret this." "Are you threatening me in my own home?" I asked, tilting my head. "Because I can add that to the report." Sylvia looked at Samuel. "Do something." He didn't move. He just stared at the floor, hands in his pockets. I walked past them and sat beside Lisa, who was still watching TV, unaware of the chaos. "I think it's time you all left," I said. Sylvia's voice was low and venomous. "You'll be hearing from our attorney." "I'm counting on it." They left in silence, the door slamming behind them. Samuel lingered. "You really did all this behind my back?" he asked. "You really thought I wouldn't?" I replied. He looked at Lisa, then at me. "You don't have to do this. We can fix it." I stood up. "No, Samuel. You broke it. And now you're going to watch me fix it without you." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He walked out without another word. I picked up my phone and called Duncan. "They tried to access the account," I said. He chuckled. "Let me guess. They hit a wall." "A big one. And I played the recordings." "Good," he said. "They'll probably try to file something anyway. But we're ready." "I hope they do," I said. "I want this on record." He paused. "Just be careful, Clara. People like that don't like losing." "I'm not afraid of them," I said. That night I sat with Lisa on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder. The house was quiet again, but my mind was racing. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd fold. But they forgot one thing. I've been fighting for Lisa her whole life, and I'm just getting started. I was folding laundry when Samuel knocked on the bedroom door like he lived in someone else's house. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice soft. I didn't look up. "You're already talking." He stepped inside, hands in his pockets, eyes darting to the basket of Lisa's clothes on the bed. I feel like things got out of hand." I dropped a folded shirt into the pile. "You mean when your parents tried to steal from my disabled sister?" He flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I turned to face him. "You sat there while they called me unstable and told me I wasn't fit to handle her care. You didn't say a word." "I was trying to keep the peace." "No," I said. "You were trying to stay in their good graces." He sighed. "They just want what's best for the family." I stared at him. "Lisa is my family. You made it clear she never counted to yours." He sat on the edge of the bed. "Can we start over? I'm serious. No more secrets." I crossed my arms. "You're about 3 betrayals too late." He looked up at me, eyes glossy. "I miss us." I didn't reply. I picked up the laundry basket and walked out. That afternoon, I got a message from an old acquaintance, Jessica. We'd met years ago at a Harris family event, bonded over awkward small talk and wine. She'd once pulled me aside when I first got engaged to Samuel and said, "Be careful. They don't like women they can't control." I hadn't listened then. I was listening now. Her message was simple. "I heard what happened. I have something you need to know." We met at a quiet cafe off Main Street. She looked older, sharper. There was something in her eyes. Regret, maybe. "They tried this before," she said, stirring her tea. "With my cousin. She had Down syndrome. Her parents left a small trust for her after they passed." I leaned in. "What happened?" Jessica's jaw tightened. "Sylvia convinced the girl's aunt to hand over control. Said she'd invest it, grow it. Within a year, the money was gone. All of it. Gone where? No one knows. The aunt tried to sue, but Sylvia claimed it was a market crash. Said she'd done everything legally. They buried it." I sat back, cold spreading through my chest. "Why didn't you say anything before?" I tried. "Remember that wedding? I pulled you aside, but you were glowing and in love, and I didn't want to be the bitter friend." "You should have said it anyway." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm saying it now." I left with a signed statement from Jessica and a file of old emails she'd saved. Ones that showed Sylvia manipulating financial decisions, pushing people into signing things they didn't understand. When I got home, Iris was already waiting on my porch. "You're not going to like this," she said, holding up a manila envelope. "What now?" She handed it to me. "They filed a lawsuit. Fraud and mismanagement of funds." I opened it. Legal jargon, court dates, accusations. My stomach turned. "They're accusing you of stealing from Lisa," Iris said, trying to flip the narrative. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Of course they are." "We'll fight it," she said. "You have everything on your side. The recordings, the documents, Jessica's statement. They're grasping at straws." Inside, Lisa was in her chair playing with a stuffed rabbit. She looked up and smiled when I walked in. I knelt beside her. "They're still trying, baby. But we're not backing down." That night, I sat with Iris on the back porch while Lisa slept. "I don't get it," I said. "Why go this far? What do they even want?" Iris lit a cigarette, something she only did when she was really pissed. Control, power, and probably money. People like them don't see people like Lisa as human. They see her as an asset. I looked out at the dark yard. I should have seen it sooner. "You saw it when it mattered," she said. "You're not just protecting her. You're setting a precedent. If they get away with this, they'll do it again." I nodded. "Then we burn it all down." The next morning, a woman from the court showed up. A social worker, appointed to evaluate Lisa's care. Samuel must have filed a concern. I let her in, showed her Lisa's therapy room, her feeding schedule, her medical files. Lisa smiled at her, even let her hold her hand. After an hour, the woman looked at me and said, "Whatever they told the court, it doesn't match what I see here." "Thank you," I said, holding back tears. She smiled. "You're doing everything right." After she left, I sat on the floor in Lisa's room and finally let myself cry. Not because I was scared, because I was tired, because I loved my sister more than anyone, and I was so damn tired of proving it. Iris came over later with takeout and a bottle of wine. We sat on the couch, Lisa between us, her head on my shoulder. "They're going to regret this," Iris said. I looked at my sister, then at her. "They already do." Duncan dropped the stack of documents on my kitchen table with a thud. "That's everything," he said. "Bank statements, the new trust structure, emails, witness statements. We're ready." I scanned the top page. "And the recordings? Labeled, time-stamped, and transcribed." "You did good, Clara." Lisa was in her chair by the window, watching the birds outside. She turned her head slightly when Duncan spoke, and he gave her a warm smile. "We're going to make sure no one ever touches your money again, sweetheart." I touched her shoulder, then looked at Duncan. "They're not going to back down, are they?" "No, but we'll bury them in truth." He packed up and promised to file everything first thing in the morning. After he left, I went to the kitchen to start dinner. I had just set water to boil when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello? Clara?" a woman's voice said. "This is Amy, Lisa's nurse. I got a call from your husband today." I froze. What did he say? He asked questions about Lisa's care. If I'd noticed anything off. If you ever seemed overwhelmed or unstable. I gripped the counter. He's trying to build a case. I told him everything's fine, that Lisa's thriving, that you're the most dedicated caregiver I've ever worked with. "Thank you," I said quietly. "I just thought you should know." Something about his tone. It didn't feel right. After we hung up, I sat down and stared at the floor. This wasn't just about money anymore. Samuel was trying to paint me as unfit. He was going to drag my name through the mud to get what he wanted. Iris came over an hour later, holding a folder. "Got something," she said, walking straight to the table. "Look at this." She pulled out a document, a property deed. "Martin took out a second mortgage on their vacation home 3 years ago," she said. "But the loan was backed by assets he didn't actually own." I frowned. "That's fraud." "Exactly. And guess what? He listed Lisa's trust fund as a family asset in the application." My stomach dropped. He used her name? Not directly. Just dependent family trust. But it's enough. He was planning this for a while. I stared at the paper. "They're in deeper than we thought." Iris nodded. "They're desperate. That's why they're coming after you so hard." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of it all pressing down. "I can't believe I married into this," I said. Iris looked at me. "You loved him." I thought I did. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You loved the version of him he showed you. That's not your fault." I nodded, blinking fast. Later that night, after Lisa was asleep, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine. Iris had gone home, and the house was quiet again. I scrolled through old photos on my phone, me and Samuel at the beach, laughing. Him holding Lisa's hand at Christmas. Fake moments, or maybe real ones once. I didn't know anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Duncan. "Evaluator cleared your household. Report filed. You're in the clear." I exhaled. The next morning, I walked into Duncan's office with a new fire in my chest. "They want to fight?" I said. "Let's give them one." He smiled. "That's what I like to hear." We filed a counter motion, a restraining order against the Harris family. No contact with Lisa. No access to the trust. No interference of any kind. We submitted every recording, every email, every document. Jessica's statement, the nurse's testimony, the mortgage fraud. We didn't just build a defense. We built a wrecking ball. That afternoon, I got a call from Samuel. "I need to see you," he said, voice hoarse. "Why?" "Please, just one conversation." I agreed, but only in public. We met at a park near downtown, open space, lots of people. I sat on a bench. He showed up late, eyes bloodshot, tie loose, hair a mess. He sat beside me without a word. "What do you want, Samuel?" He rubbed his face. "I messed up." I said nothing. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought we could control it, that we could help. "You wanted to help?" I snapped. "By stealing from a woman who can't speak for herself?" He looked down. "I'm being investigated. At work. Insider trading. Someone tipped them off." I raised an eyebrow. "That sounds serious. I could lose everything." I turned to him. "You already did." He looked at me, eyes pleading. Clara, can you fix this? I stood up. You called me too emotional, but you want me to clean up your mess? He didn't answer. I leaned in, my voice low. You tried to take everything from me, from Lisa. And now you want mercy? He looked away. I walked off without saying another word. Some bridges don't burn. They explode. You're sure you want to do this? Duncan asked, sliding the thick packet across his desk. I picked it up, flipped through the pages. Absolutely. We were filing the restraining order today against Sylvia, Martin, and Samuel. It covered Lisa, the trust, and me. No contact, no interference, no loopholes. Duncan tapped the packet. This will go public. They'll get served. Their names will be on record. Good, I said. Let them explain that to their country club friends. He smiled slowly. Let's ruin their afternoon. By the time I got home, the process server had already done his job. Sylvia called me 3 times. I didn't answer. Then Martin tried. Then Samuel. I blocked them all. An hour later, Iris showed up with a USB drive and a grin. You're going to want to see this. We sat at my kitchen table. Lisa was in her therapy swing, humming softly. Iris plugged the drive into my laptop and opened a folder labeled Public Image. These are community board emails, she said. Sylvia's on the board for that arts foundation, right? I nodded. Well, turns out they don't like being associated with lawsuits involving disabled people, especially when there are recordings. She clicked a file. A forwarded email popped up. Given the recent legal matter involving Mrs. Harris and the trust of a dependent adult, we will be suspending her role on the board effective immediately. I leaned back in my chair. She's out? Completely. And Martin's business partner just pulled out of a project after the mortgage fraud came up. They're hemorrhaging. Iris opened another file. And Samuel? His firm placed him on indefinite leave. There's an internal investigation now. I stared at the screen. All of this, it's actually working. Clara, she said, you didn't just protect Lisa. You exposed them. People like that count on silence. That night, I finally let myself breathe. Not relax, just breathe. Until the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Samuel. Drunk, red-eyed, slurring. Please, he said. You have to help me. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. You shouldn't be here. I lost everything, he said, swaying slightly. My job. My parents won't talk to me. I'm under investigation. Clara, I'm ruined. You did that to yourself. I didn't know they'd go this far, he whispered. They told me it was just a formality, that we'd help Lisa, that you'd be okay. I stared at him. You sat there while they planned to steal from her. You called me unstable. You tried to make the nurse question me. He sank onto the porch steps. I don't even know who I am anymore. I do, I said. You're a man who let his family destroy everything good in his life because he was too weak to stand up to them. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. I loved you. No, I said. You loved control. And when you lost it, you chose them. He reached for my hand. Clara, please. I stepped back. You need to leave. Now. He stood slowly, stumbled, then walked down the steps and into the night. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it, heart pounding. The next morning, Duncan called. Court date is set. 2 weeks. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. We'll be ready. He paused. You okay? Getting there. 2 weeks passed in a blur. Prep meetings, witness calls, final paperwork. Jessica agreed to testify in person. Amy, Lisa's nurse, wrote a glowing affidavit. The court-appointed evaluator submitted her report. Clara provides exceptional care in a loving, stable environment. The morning of the hearing, I dressed Lisa in her favorite yellow sweater. I wore black. Not for mourning, for clarity. Iris picked us up, her car already stocked with snacks and water bottles. "You ready to end this?" she asked. I looked at Lisa in the back seat, smiling at her reflection in the window. "Let's finish it." When we walked into the courthouse, Sylvia and Martin were already there. Sylvia wore a stiff navy suit and a frozen smile. Martin didn't look at me. Samuel sat behind them, alone. The hearing started. Duncan laid everything out, chronologically, clearly, with receipts. Literally. He played the recordings. He showed the trust restructuring. He submitted the mortgage documents, the board emails, Jessica's statement. Sylvia's lawyer tried to argue concern for Lisa's future. Duncan countered with, "Then why attempt to access the trust before the ink was dry?" The judge listened, stone-faced. Then it was my turn. I stood. My hands didn't shake. I've cared for my sister since I was 19. I changed her feeding tubes. I fought for her therapies. I've never missed a single appointment. The only time she's ever been in a hospital is when her spine surgery got scheduled early. She is my family, and I will never let anyone use her for profit or power. Silence. The judge looked at the Harrises. Then the verdict came. Restraining order granted. Permanent. Sylvia and Martin, barred from contacting Lisa or accessing the trust. Samuel, no legal standing, no access, no rights. I was reaffirmed as sole guardian and trustee. Outside the courtroom, Samuel followed me down the steps. "Clara," I turned to him. "You called me too emotional," I said. "Funny. That's the only thing that kept me from burying you further." He didn't reply. He just watched me walk away. The courthouse hallway was too cold, too quiet. My heels clicked against the tile as I walked beside Duncan. Lisa's care binder clutched tight in my arms. Iris followed close behind, her phone buzzing nonstop with messages from reporters and legal contacts. "They're already asking for statements," she whispered. "Let them wait," I said. Inside the courtroom, Sylvia sat stiff-backed, her lips pressed into a line so tight it looked painful. Martin sat beside her, his face pale, eyes darting around like he was looking for an exit. Samuel was alone again, slumped in the back row, a shadow of the man I used to know. The judge entered. We all stood. "Let's proceed," she said, her voice even. Duncan stepped forward first. "Your Honor, we're submitting final evidence of the trust's legal restructuring, along with documentation of recorded conversations, financial misconduct, and prior incidents of exploitation involving the plaintiffs." He handed over a thick folder. The judge flipped through it without a word. Then Sylvia's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my clients maintain that their intentions were in the best interest of the dependent party. They were misled, manipulated, and..." The judge raised a hand. "I've reviewed the evidence. The recordings speak for themselves." Sylvia shifted in her seat. Martin looked like he might be sick. "Mrs. Harris," the judge said, turning to me, "you've proven beyond doubt that your sister's care has been consistent, loving, and legally sound. The plaintiff's actions show a pattern of manipulation and self-interest." She paused. "This court grants full and permanent guardianship and financial control to Clara. The restraining order will remain in place indefinitely. The plaintiffs are barred from any future contact with Lisa or involvement in her care or trust." Sylvia gasped. Martin said nothing. Samuel lowered his head into his hands. The gavel came down. It was over. Outside, reporters were already gathering. Iris stepped in front of me. "No comment," she said firmly, shielding me and Lisa as we walked down the steps. I didn't stop until we reached the car. I opened the door, helped Lisa in, and fastened her belt. She looked up at me and smiled, her eyes bright. "We did it," I whispered, brushing her hair back. Iris opened the passenger door. "You want me to drive?" "No," I said. "I want to feel the road." We pulled away from the courthouse, the chaos fading behind us. I drove to our favorite park, the one with the ducks and the wide, flat paths. I parked under a tree and helped Lisa out of the car. She giggled as the wind caught her scarf. We sat on a bench. Just us. Iris joined a few minutes later, holding 2 coffees. "You didn't just win," she said. "You buried them." "They buried themselves," I said. "I just handed them the shovel." She laughed, then turned serious. "You sure you're okay?" I nodded. "I'm just tired. But yeah, I'm okay." We sat in silence for a while, watching Lisa laugh at a squirrel trying to steal a chip bag from the trash can. Then I saw him. Samuel. He stood at the edge of the parking lot, hands in his pockets, eyes locked on us. He looked like hell, suit wrinkled, face hollow. I stood. "Clara," Iris warned, "I've got it." I walked toward him, stopping a few feet away. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I know," he replied. I needed to see you. One last time." I crossed my arms. "Why?" He looked past me at Lisa. "Because I forgot what this was all about. I got caught up in their world. I let them convince me that money mattered more than people." I didn't respond. "I lost everything," he said, "and I deserve that. But you didn't. You never did." He took a step forward. "I'm sorry." I held up a hand. "Don't. You don't get to apologize and walk away feeling lighter. You let them try to destroy us." He nodded. "I know. You let them use her name on a mortgage. You tried to make me look unfit. You stood in that courtroom and said nothing." "I know," he said again, voice cracking. I turned to go. "Clara," he said, "I loved you." I looked back once. I loved who I thought you were. Then I walked away. Iris was waiting with a look that said, "You okay?" I nodded. Samuel got in his car and drove off. Back at the bench, Lisa reached for my hand. I took it, squeezing gently. "You're safe now," I said. "They can't touch us." She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. For the first time in months, I let myself relax. Not because the fight was over, but because we'd won. The movers had just finished unloading the last box when Lisa let out a soft squeal from her chair. Her eyes were locked on the window in front of her, where sunlight streamed through sheer lavender curtains and spilled across the hardwood floor. "I know," I said, smiling. "It's brighter, isn't it?" She flapped her hand excitedly, her version of applause. The therapy room was finally done. Soft foam mats, a new adjustable bed, shelves filled with sensory toys and books. No more narrow hallways, no more creaky steps. Just space, light, and peace. I stepped out into the living room, where Iris was crouched over a pile of cords, trying to set up the Wi-Fi. "Remind me again why we didn't just hire someone to do this?" she muttered. "Because you're too stubborn to let a stranger touch your router," I said, dropping onto the couch. She rolled her eyes. "Fair." The new house was smaller, but it was ours. No more shared property. No more Harris family mail showing up at my door. Just me, Lisa, and a front porch with enough space for morning coffee. "You get the divorce papers signed?" Iris asked, finally standing up and wiping her hands on her jeans. "Yesterday." He didn't contest anything, just signed and sent them back. She raised an eyebrow. "No final speech? No last-minute plea?" He left a note, said he hoped I'd find peace. Iris snorted. He should have hoped for a good lawyer. I laughed, and it felt real this time. Deep, from the chest. Not a reflex. Not a mask. There was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Duncan holding a thick manila envelope. "Thought I'd drop this off in person," he said. I let him in, and he handed me the file. "What is it?" "Final trust paperwork. Sealed, secured, and backed by a third-party oversight board. No one can touch it but you." I flipped through the pages, scanning the signatures and stamps. "You did good, Clara," he said. You didn't just protect Lisa. You set a legal precedent. This case? It's being cited in 2 other states already. I looked up. Seriously? He nodded. Families trying to take over dependent trusts. Lawyers are using your case to fight back. Iris let out a low whistle. Guess you're famous now. Not famous, I said. Just loud enough to be heard. Duncan smiled. You need anything else? You call me. Otherwise, enjoy the quiet. He left, and I stood there for a moment, holding the file like it was something sacred. Iris came to stand beside me. You know, she said, we could do more with this. With what? This story. The legal process. The way you handled it. We could build something. Resources, workshops, even a support group. You're not the only one this has happened to. I looked at her. You want to start a war? She grinned. No, I want to start a movement. I looked over at Lisa, who was now spinning her favorite sensory light toy, the colors dancing across her face. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Later that evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea while Lisa napped inside. The sun was setting, casting gold across the yard. Iris sat beside me, laptop open, already drafting ideas. We'll need a name, she said. Something strong, I replied. Something that says, don't mess with us. She typed a few words, then deleted them. We'll figure it out. I sipped my tea. You really think people will listen? They already are, she said. Every time someone Googles your case, they're learning how to fight back. I nodded slowly. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was building something. Lisa stirred inside, letting out a soft sound. I stood, walked back in, and kissed her forehead. They tried to salt the earth around us, baby, I whispered. She smiled in her sleep, peaceful. But they didn't know. We'd grown in drought before.
I knew something was wrong the moment I woke up on my wedding day. Not the usual jitters that brides get. This was different. A heaviness in my chest, like my body was trying to warn me about something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The lilies arrived at 9 a.m. I remember checking my phone as the florist knocked, seeing a text from Thomas. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle. I love you more than you'll ever know. I should have known then. The people who love you most never feel the need to quantify it. These are gorgeous, I said to my best friend Cadence as she arranged the bouquets around my hotel suite. The white petals looked so pure against the champagne-colored bridesmaid dresses hanging by the window. Thomas has good taste, she replied, adjusting a stem. In flowers and women. I smiled, but something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. Had her voice hitched slightly? Was there something she wasn't telling me? My phone buzzed again. Kimberly, my sister and maid of honor. Running late. Traffic. Don't panic. Be there in 20. My sister's running late, I told Cadence, rolling my eyes. Typical Kimberly. She'll be here, Cadence said, not meeting my eyes. I walked to the bathroom, needing a moment alone. The woman in the mirror looked back at me with uncertainty clouding her eyes. Me, Isla Barnes, about to become Isla Jensen in less than 5 hours. I'd spent 28 years becoming myself, and now I was changing again. My phone buzzed in my hand. Thomas again, but this time the message wasn't for me. I can't do this to her. We need to talk before the ceremony. My heart stopped. The message preview showed on my lock screen, but when I opened the app, there was nothing there. Wrong conversation, wrong thread. I felt sick. With trembling fingers, I opened his contact and pressed call, straight to voicemail. I tried again, same result. Cadence. My voice sounded strange even to my own ears. Can you try calling Thomas? She appeared in the doorway, concern etched across her face. Everything okay? Just humor me? She dialed, then frowned. Voicemail. I nodded, trying to keep my breathing steady. I need to check something. I'll be right back. Isla, you can't leave. You're getting your makeup done in 15 minutes. But I was already grabbing my purse, slipping on shoes, moving toward the door with single-minded purpose. I'll be quick. Cover for me with the makeup artist. The elevator ride to Thomas's suite felt eternal. We'd followed tradition, separate rooms the night before the wedding. How quaint that seemed now, with dread coursing through my veins. I knocked softly at first, then harder when there was no answer. The door to the adjoining room opened instead, and Mohammed, Thomas's best man, peered out. Isla, what are you— Where is he? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. Mohammed's expression told me everything. Pity. That's what I saw there. He went for a walk, said he needed to clear his head. With my sister? The words hung in the air between us. Mohammed's silence was confirmation enough. How long have you known? I asked. He looked at the floor. I only suspected. I tried to talk to him, but— Save it. I pushed past him into Thomas's room. His tux hung pristinely on the closet door. His overnight bag sat open on the luggage rack. Toiletries arranged neatly on the bathroom counter. And there, on the nightstand, was his other phone. Yes, his other phone. The one I discovered 2 weeks ago when I borrowed his jacket and felt something hard in the inner pocket. The one with the passcode I'd figured out in seconds because he used the same 4 digits for everything. The one that contained hundreds of messages between him and my sister. I picked it up now, unlocked it, and scrolled through their most recent exchange. Kay, we can't keep doing this. It's killing me. T, I know, I'm going to tell her. K, when? T, today, before the ceremony. K, meet me in the garden. 11 a.m. It was 11:17. I walked to the window. From here, I could see the hotel's garden, with its stone pathways and carefully tended flower beds. And there they were, Thomas in his dress shirt and slacks, no jacket, gesturing emphatically. Kimberly in a robe, her hair half done, tears streaming down her face. My sister, my fiancé. I should have screamed. Should have thrown things. Should have run down there and created a scene. Instead, I felt a strange calm descend over me, like I was watching someone else's life implode. Isla. Mohammed's voice was gentle behind me. I'm so sorry. Don't be, I said, not turning around. I'm not the first bride to be betrayed, and I won't be the last. I took a deep breath, then another, turned away from the window, looked Mohammed directly in the eyes. The ceremony starts at 2 p.m. Make sure he's there. What? But— Make sure they're both there, I said, my voice steady. Tell them whatever you need to, but I want everyone in their places when I walk down that aisle. Mohammed stared at me, confusion evident on his face. Isla, you can't possibly still want to go through with the wedding. I smiled then, and something in my expression made him take a step back. Oh, I have no intention of marrying Thomas today, but I knew about their affair long before I ever reached the altar, and now everyone will know too. 2 hours later, I stood just outside the reception hall, my wedding dress like armor around me. The makeup artist had done her job well. No one would guess I'd been crying. My face was a perfect mask of bridal serenity. Are you sure about this? Cadence whispered, adjusting my veil. Her eyes were wide with concern. We could just cancel, tell everyone you're sick, and let them get away with it. I smoothed down the front of my dress. Not a chance. The wedding coordinator gave me a thumbs up from the doorway. The music had started. Not the processional yet, just the soft prelude that would accompany the seating of guests. I could hear the murmur of conversation, the rustle of programs, the occasional laugh. They had no idea what was coming. Did you set it up? I asked Mohammed, who stood awkwardly to the side, loyalty clearly torn. He nodded. The projector's ready, but Isla, this is going to destroy them both. They destroyed me first. My voice didn't even sound like my own anymore. Did Thomas show up? He's at the altar. Looks like he's about to throw up. Good. I'd spent 2 weeks planning this moment. 2 weeks of smiling through final fittings and rehearsal dinners while carrying the weight of their betrayal. 2 weeks of forwarding their messages to my email, taking screenshots, creating a timeline of their affair. Kimberly appeared from around the corner, her bridesmaid dress fitting her perfectly. Of course it did. She'd insisted on the design, claiming it would flatter everyone in the bridal party. Now I understood why she'd been so invested. "There you are." She rushed toward me, face flushed. "I've been looking everywhere. Are you okay? You disappeared earlier." The audacity, the absolute audacity. "I'm fine," I said coolly. "Just needed some air." She studied my face. "You seem different." "Do I?" I tilted my head. How strange. The coordinator signaled that it was time. The bridesmaids lined up, Kimberly at the front as maid of honor. She gave me one last look. Was that guilt I saw, before plastering on a smile and stepping through the doorway. My father appeared at my side, offering his arm. "Ready, sweetheart?" I wasn't, but I would never be more ready than I was in this moment. "Actually, Dad," I said quietly, "I need to walk in alone." He frowned. "That's not the plan. Plans change." I kissed his cheek. "Trust me." Confusion clouded his eyes, but he nodded slowly. "If that's what you want." The wedding march began. Everyone stood. I took a deep breath and stepped into the doorway. Thomas waited at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, his face a picture of tortured indecision. Kimberly stood opposite, unable to meet my eyes. 200 guests turned to watch me, their expressions soft with the particular joy reserved for weddings. I didn't move. The music continued, but I remained frozen in the doorway. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Thomas shifted uncomfortably. The officiant looked concerned. Finally, I stepped forward, not down the aisle, but to the side table where a laptop sat connected to the projector. I pressed a single key. The screen behind the altar lit up. A text message appeared, enormous and damning. "T, I can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" Then another. "Day, this is wrong. She's my sister." And another. "T, I've never felt this way about anyone, not even Isla." Gasps echoed through the hall. I pressed another key, and the messages continued to scroll, a digital testament to their betrayal. Dates, times, explicit details, all laid bare before our friends and family. "Isla, stop!" Thomas had finally found his voice, stepping down from the altar. "This isn't what?" I cut him off, my voice carrying through the stunned silence. "Isn't appropriate. Neither was sleeping with my sister while planning our wedding." Kimberly had crumpled to the floor, sobbing. My mother was on her feet, one hand covering her mouth in horror. My father stood rigid with shock. "I trusted you both," I continued, my voice steady despite the hurricane inside me. "I loved you both, and this is how you repaid that love." Thomas reached for me. "Please, let me explain." I stepped back. "There's nothing to explain. The messages speak for themselves." "We were going to tell you," Kimberly choked out. "Today, before what?" I turned to her. "Before you let me walk down the aisle, or after you'd watched me pledge my life to a man who couldn't even be faithful before the wedding." The room was utterly silent now. I looked around at the shocked faces of our guests, people who had traveled from across the country to celebrate our love. "What a joke. The reception is cancelled," I announced. "But please, help yourselves to the champagne. I think we could all use a drink." I turned to leave, then paused. One final twist of the knife. "Oh, and Thomas, the honeymoon tickets are non-refundable. Maybe you and Kimberly can go instead. I hear Bali is beautiful this time of year." I walked out, head high, the weight of 200 stairs on my back. In the lobby, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Cadence caught up to me, breathless. I don't even have words. "I do," I said, unpinning my veil. "Liberation." She looked at me with a mixture of awe and concern. "What now?" I smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. If they thought I'd quietly disappear, they were sorely mistaken. 3 days after what people were now calling the wedding massacre, I sat in a secluded corner of Riverside Park, watching fallen leaves skitter across the path. The autumn air carried a chill that matched the coldness that had settled in my chest. "You're early." The voice came from behind me. I turned to see Jasmine approaching, her dark hair whipping around her face in the breeze. She'd been Kimberly's best friend since college, until some mysterious falling out 2 years ago. I'd always liked her, though we'd never been close. "Thanks for meeting me," I said as she sat beside me on the bench. "Are you kidding? When you texted, I nearly dropped my phone." She studied my face. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better." I attempted a smile, but I've survived worse than a cheating fiancé and a backstabbing sister. "Have you, though?" Her directness caught me off guard. I looked away. Maybe not. We sat in silence for a moment, watching a jogger pass by with a golden retriever trotting alongside. "So," Jasmine finally said, "you want to know why Kimberly and I stopped speaking?" I'm guessing it wasn't just a petty argument over borrowed clothes. She laughed without humor. "No, it was because of Thomas." My heart stuttered. "What?" "Not like that," she clarified quickly. "I never slept with him, but I caught them together 2 years ago, at a conference in Chicago." The timeline hit me like a physical blow. 2 years? They've been on and off from what I gathered. I confronted her about it, told her she needed to come clean to you or I would. She swore it was over, that it had been a mistake. Jasmine's eyes hardened. A week later, she'd systematically turned all our mutual friends against me, claimed I'd tried to seduce her boyfriend at the time. Classic Kimberly deflection. I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to process this new information. 2 years, not a recent indiscretion, not cold feet before the wedding. 2 years of lies. "Why didn't you tell me anyway?" I asked, unable to keep the accusation from my voice. "I tried calling you once. You never called back." She shrugged. "Then I heard you were engaged, and I figured maybe it really was over between them. Maybe telling you would just cause pain for no reason." I remembered the missed call now, a number I didn't recognize during a hectic week at work. One voicemail I'd deleted without listening to. "I should have tried harder," Jasmine admitted. "I'm sorry, Isla." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "So, what's your plan?" she asked after a moment. The wedding stunt was epic, but knowing Kimberly, she's already spinning it to make herself the victim somehow. She is. I pulled out my phone, showing Jasmine the Instagram post Kimberly had shared yesterday, a black and white selfie, eyes downcast, with a long caption about mistakes, forgiveness, and the complexity of love. It had over 2,000 sympathetic comments. "Unbelievable," Jasmine muttered. She always lands on her feet. "Not this time." I put my phone away. I want to make sure they both lose something that actually matters to them. "Like what?" "Thomas is up for partner at his firm. The decision comes down next month." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "And you know something that could derail that?" "I know he's been falsifying billable hours. I found spreadsheets on his laptop, the real ones versus what he submits to the partners. That's actually serious, like career-ending serious." I nodded. "And Kimberly's been shortlisted for that curator position at the Brennan Gallery." "Her dream job," Jasmine mused. "What's your angle there?" "I'm not sure yet. That's partly why I wanted to talk to you. You know her better than almost anyone." Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. "Can I ask you something, Isla? What's your end game here? Will ruining their careers actually make you feel better?" The question caught me off guard. Would it? I honestly didn't know. "I just want them to understand what they've done," I said finally. "I want them to lose something they care about, the way I lost something I cared about." "And then what?" "Then I move on, I guess." Jasmine studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "You know what made me finally get over what Kimberly did to me? Realizing that carrying that anger was like drinking poison and expecting her to die. That's very zen of you," I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. but I'm not there yet. I get it. She stood up, brushing leaves from her jeans. I'll help you, Isla, but just be careful. Revenge has a way of changing people. As if I hadn't already been changed irrevocably. There's one more thing you should know, Jasmine said, her expression darkening. The affair wasn't the only betrayal. What do you mean? The startup Thomas invested in last year. The one that's about to go public. I nodded. Everyone knew about it. Thomas had put in a significant chunk of our wedding fund, promising it would triple before the big day. He'd been right. Kimberly's name is on those investment documents too. They've been business partners all along. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't just emotions. They had been building a future together, financially, practically, while I planned our wedding. How do you know this? I managed to ask. I still have friends at Kimberly's firm. The paperwork crossed someone's desk. Jasmine's eyes held genuine sympathy. I'm sorry, Isla. I stood up, suddenly needing to move, to do something with the energy coursing through me. Don't be sorry, I said, my resolve hardening. Be ready. The web they've spun is about to tangle them beyond belief. The autumn chill seeped through my coat as I stared at the email on my phone, my third attempt at revenge fizzling before my eyes. Ms. Barnes, while we appreciate your concerns regarding Thomas Jensen's professional conduct, we require more substantial evidence before proceeding with any investigation. Without documentation of the alleged billing discrepancies, we cannot take action. I deleted the email with a frustrated tap. The managing partner at Thomas's law firm wasn't going to act on an anonymous tip, and I'd been too cautious to attach my name or the actual evidence. The spreadsheets I'd mentioned to Jasmine were on Thomas's password-protected laptop, not in my possession. Strike one. My attempt to contact the Brennan Gallery's board about Kimberly's questionable professional ethics had similarly stalled. They'd politely informed me that her personal life had no bearing on her curatorial capabilities. Strike two. And just yesterday, my carefully orchestrated plan to have their investment connection exposed through a financial blogger had fallen apart when the blogger demanded proof I couldn't provide. Strike three. You look like you're plotting someone's murder, Mohammed said, sliding into the booth across from me. The coffee shop buzzed with midday energy around us. Not murder, just mild career destruction. I put my phone away. Thanks for meeting me. Mohammed had been Thomas's best man and one of his closest friends since college. That he'd agreed to see me at all was surprising. I almost didn't come, he admitted, as if reading my thoughts. Thomas would lose his mind if he knew. Are you still speaking to him? Mohammed sighed, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. Barely. What he did was messed up, Isla. I told him that. A small vindication, but I'd take it. Have you been talking to anyone? He asked, genuine concern in his eyes. A therapist, maybe. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You look exhausted. I was. Sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. My nights spent cycling through anger, plotting, and occasional bouts of devastating grief. I'm handling it, I insisted. The barista called Mohammed's name, and he went to retrieve our drinks. I watched him chat easily with her, his natural warmth evident even in this brief interaction. He'd always been the peacemaker in our group, the one who made sure everyone felt included. One oat milk latte, he said, placing it before me. Still your favorite, right? I nodded, touched that he remembered. Isla, he began carefully, I need to ask, what are you hoping to accomplish here? With all these attempts at payback? Justice, I said automatically. Is that what this is? I stirred my latte, avoiding his gaze. They humiliated me in front of everyone we know. They betrayed me for years. They were building a future together while I was picking out wedding centerpieces. I know, and it's unforgivable. He leaned forward. But this path you're on, it's changing you. Maybe I needed to change. Into someone consumed by revenge. That's not the Ela I know. The Isla you know was a fool, I snapped, louder than intended. A few heads turned our way. I lowered my voice. She trusted people who didn't deserve it. Mohammed was quiet for a moment. Thomas came to see me last night. He was drunk, crying. Something twisted in my chest. Am I supposed to feel sorry for him? No, but he said something that's been bothering me. He said you knew about them before the wedding, that you found his other phone 2 weeks earlier. I stiffened. So, why go through with the ceremony at all? Why not just confront them when you found out? The question hung between us. I'd asked myself the same thing during sleepless nights, because a private confrontation would have been too easy for them, I finally said. They would have apologized, cried, begged forgiveness. Kimberly would have played the confused little sister led astray. Thomas would have blamed cold feet or temporary insanity. And you wanted them to suffer more publicly. I wanted consequences they couldn't charm their way out of. Mohammed studied me. And now? What do you want now? The truth slipped out before I could stop it. I don't know anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Found something. Call me ASAP. I should go, I said, gathering my things. Mohammed caught my wrist gently. Isla, wait. There's something else you should know. The seriousness in his tone made me pause. Thomas isn't just upset about the wedding. He's worried about what else you might know. About what? The startup investment. There's something not right about it. He wouldn't give details, but he's terrified of an audit. My pulse quickened. Did he say why? No, but whatever it is, it's big enough that he's talking about leaving the country for a while. This was it, the thread I needed to pull. When? Soon. Days, not weeks. I stood up, my mind racing. Thanks for telling me. I'm not telling you so you can use it against him, Mohammed said, his expression troubled. I'm telling you because I'm worried about you getting caught in the fallout. Whatever they're involved in, it might be bigger than you realize. I can handle it. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've spent the last week trying and failing to exact revenge instead of actually processing what happened. His words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Maybe I'm not ready to process it yet, I said quietly, and maybe that's exactly what you need to do. He stood too, facing me. The Ela I know is stronger than this. She doesn't need revenge to move forward. I wanted to believe him. Part of me even knew he was right. But another part, the part that woke up every morning with the image of Thomas and Kimberly together, couldn't let go. I appreciate your concern, I said, stepping back, but some shadows are more tenacious than others. You're absolutely sure about this? I asked Jasmine, staring at the documents spread across her kitchen table. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through her apartment windows. The paper trail doesn't lie. She tapped a highlighted section of the investment agreement. Thomas and Kimberly didn't just invest in this startup, they're using it to launder money. My stomach lurched. This was far beyond billing fraud or ethical violations. This was criminal. But where's the money coming from? I asked. That's the million-dollar question. Jasmine pushed another document toward me. But whatever it is, it's big enough that they created shell companies to hide it. And look who else is involved. I followed her finger to a signature at the bottom of the page. Martin Reeves, Thomas's boss and the managing partner, who had dismissed my anonymous tip. Holy shit, I whispered. This goes way beyond your sister sleeping with your fiancé, Isla. You've stumbled onto something dangerous. I sat back, trying to process the implications. No wonder my earlier attempts at revenge had failed. I'd been trying to expose twigs while there was an entire forest of corruption. What exactly did your friend at the financial firm say? I asked. That the SEC has been quietly investigating this group for months. They don't have enough evidence yet, but they're circling. The coffee shop bell jingled as the door opened. I glanced up automatically, then froze. Kimberly stood in the entrance, scanning the cafe. Her eyes locked with mine, widening in surprise. For a moment, neither of us moved. Speak of the devil, Jasmine muttered. I hadn't seen my sister since the wedding. She looked thinner, her usually perfect appearance slightly frayed at the edges. Without makeup, the shadows under her eyes were pronounced. To my shock, She walked directly to our table. "Isla," she said, her voice carefully neutral, "I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy." I began gathering the documents, sliding them into Jasmine's folder. "With what? Planning your next public humiliation." There was a bitter edge to her words. "That's rich coming from you." Kimberly's eyes flicked to Jasmine, then back to me. "Can we talk? Privately?" "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of Jasmine." "Fine." She pulled out a chair and sat uninvited. "Thomas is planning to leave the country. Tonight." My heart skipped. Mohammed mentioned he might. "Did Mohammed also mention that Thomas is planning to take all the investment money with him, including your portion?" I stared at her. "My portion?" "The wedding fund. Your savings that he convinced you to invest." She leaned forward. "He's cutting me out too, Isla. He's taking everything." Jasmine made a skeptical noise. "And we're supposed to believe you suddenly care about Isla's financial well-being?" Kimberly ignored her, keeping her eyes on me. "I know you hate me. You have every right to. But Thomas is screwing us both now, and I thought you should know." I studied my sister's face, searching for the tells I'd known since childhood. The slight flutter of her eyelids when she lied. The way she touched her collarbone when she was hiding something. But her gaze remained steady. "Why would he cut you out?" I asked. "You're his partner in all this." Something flickered across her face. "Things changed after the wedding, after what you did." "After what I did?" I laughed incredulously. "You mean exposing the truth?" "You have no idea what you've done," she hissed, suddenly intense. "The people involved in this investment, they don't tolerate public attention. Thomas is running because he's scared, and he should be." A chill ran through me. "What people, Kimberly? Who exactly are you involved with?" She glanced nervously around the cafe. "I can't talk about it here." "Convenient," Jasmine muttered. Kimberly reached across the table, grabbing my wrist. Her fingers were ice cold. "Isla, listen to me. Whatever you think of me right now, I'm trying to help you. Thomas has a meeting at the Westlake Hotel at 7 tonight. Room 412. He's collecting the last payment before he disappears. And you're telling me this out of sisterly concern." I pulled my hand away. "I'm telling you because you deserve to get your money back." She stood up. "What you do with this information is up to you." As she turned to leave, I called after her. "Why should I believe anything you say?" She paused, looking back with an expression I couldn't read. "Because despite everything, you're still my sister, and I've done enough damage." The door closed behind her with a soft chime. "Well, that was dramatic," Jasmine said after a moment. "You don't actually believe her, do you?" I stared at the door, my thoughts racing. "I don't know. But if Thomas is really leaving tonight..." "This could be a trap, Isla. She could be setting you up. Or she could be telling the truth." I checked my watch, 5:30 p.m. "There's only one way to find out." Jasmine grabbed my arm. "You can't seriously be thinking of going to that hotel. I need to know what's happening. And if there's any chance of getting my money back..." "This isn't about money anymore," Jasmine insisted. "These documents suggest serious criminal activity. We should take this to the authorities." She was right. The rational thing would be to walk away, let the legal system handle it. But something in Kimberly's eyes had gotten to me. Genuine fear. Not for herself, but for me. "I'll be careful," I promised, gathering my things. "I'll just observe from a distance. If anything seems off, I'll leave immediately." Jasmine looked unconvinced. "At least let me come with you." "No, if this is dangerous, I'm not dragging you into it." "Isla, I need to do this, Jasmine." I met her gaze steadily. "But I promise to call you the second I'm done." She reluctantly nodded. "Fine, but remember what I said about revenge changing people. Don't let it change you into someone who takes stupid risks." As I stepped outside into the gathering dusk, I realized with startling clarity that this had stopped being about revenge somewhere along the way. Now it was about truth, and perhaps, in some strange way, about protecting the sister who had betrayed me. Some alliances, it seemed, were forged in fire. The Westlake Hotel lobby hummed with quiet luxury, plush carpets muffling footsteps, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over leather armchairs. I sat in a corner, nursing an overpriced gin and tonic, watching the elevator bank through the reflection in a decorative mirror. 6:55 p.m. My pulse quickened as the minute hand ticked closer to 7. I'd changed into a black dress and heels, hair pulled back, anonymous enough to blend with the hotel's upscale clientele, yet put together enough that no one would question my presence. The perfect disguise, a woman waiting for someone who wasn't coming. The elevator doors opened. Thomas stepped out, his familiar tall frame instantly recognizable. He wore a charcoal suit I'd never seen before, carrying a slim leather briefcase. His face looked gaunt, the confident swagger I once found attractive, replaced by furtive glances. He headed for the elevators, serving the higher floors, not noticing me in my shadowed corner. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. The fourth-floor corridor was silent, thick carpet swallowing my footsteps. I moved carefully past numbered doors until I reached 412. Pressing my ear against the cool wood, I heard muffled voices inside, Thomas's distinctive baritone and another man's deeper rumble. "Not what we agreed," the stranger was saying. "The full amount was due today. I know. Thomas's voice had that placating tone I'd heard him use with difficult clients. But with everything that's happened, my wedding, the publicity, your personal problems don't concern us. I just need 2 more days. The final transfers are processing." A heavy silence followed. "Mr. Jensen." The man's voice dropped lower, forcing me to press harder against the door. "Our organization has been very patient. That patience has limits." My heart hammered against my ribs. Kimberly's warning echoed in my mind. The people involved in this investment, they don't tolerate public attention. The door handle turned suddenly. I jerked back, looking frantically for somewhere to hide. Too late. The door swung open, revealing a broad-shouldered man with silver temples and cold eyes. He assessed me with a single glance. "It seems we have company," he said over his shoulder. Thomas appeared behind him, his face draining of color when he saw me. "Isla? What the hell are you doing here?" My mind raced for a plausible explanation. "I was looking for you. The front desk said you were in this room." The silver-haired man smiled thinly. "A friend of yours, Mr. Jensen?" Thomas swallowed visibly. "My ex-fiancé." "How interesting." He stepped aside. "Please join us." It wasn't a request. I entered the room on wooden legs, adrenaline flooding my system. The suite was spacious, with a sitting area where papers were spread across a coffee table. A laptop glowed with spreadsheets I recognized from Jasmine's documents. "Martin Reeves," the man introduced himself, extending a hand. "I believe you contacted my office recently." I froze. Thomas's boss. The managing partner, whose signature I'd seen on those documents. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed. "No?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "An anonymous tip about Thomas's billing practices. That wasn't you." Thomas stared at me. "You did what?" "Perhaps we should all sit down," Martin suggested, gesturing to the sofa. "It seems we have much to discuss." I remained standing. "Actually, I should go. This was a mistake. I'm afraid I must insist." Martin's tone hardened as he closed the door behind me. "Especially given your recent investigation into our investment activities." My blood turned to ice. How could he possibly know about that? "Isla, what have you done?" Thomas whispered, genuine fear in his eyes. "Me? What have you done?" I turned to face him fully. "Money laundering, Thomas. Shell companies. Was that before or after you started sleeping with my sister?" Martin sighed. "Domestic drama. How tedious." He moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Ms. Barnes, I'll be direct. You've become a problem. Your wedding spectacle created unwanted attention. Your subsequent digging has created risk." "I haven't told anyone anything," I lied. "No, not even your new friend Jasmine Hunt, or perhaps Mohammed Robinson." The casual mention of my friend sent a chill down my spine. He'd been watching me. What do you want? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. For you to disappear. He turned back to face me. Not permanently, of course, just away, a long vacation perhaps, with the appropriate financial incentive. You're trying to buy me off? I'm offering you an opportunity to walk away unscathed. He nodded toward the briefcase. $500,000, tax-free, more than enough to start fresh somewhere pleasant. My mind reeled. This was surreal, being offered a bribe in a hotel room by my ex-fiancé's corrupt boss. And if I refuse, Martin's expression hardened, then I cannot guarantee your safety, or the safety of those you've involved. The threat hung in the air, clear and chilling. Thomas stepped forward. Isla, please, take the money, walk away. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since entering the room. The man I'd planned to marry was terrified, a cornered animal willing to sacrifice anyone to save himself. You're pathetic, I whispered. I'm a survivor, he countered. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed. I had seconds to decide, take the money and run, or stand my ground and face whatever consequences came. I need to think, I said finally. Martin checked his watch. You have until midnight, not a minute longer. He picked up the briefcase, holding it out to me. Consider this a good faith deposit. The rest comes when you provide proof you've left the city. My hand trembled as I took the case. It was heavier than I expected, the weight of corruption made tangible. I'll expect your answer by phone, Martin said, writing a number on the hotel notepad. Come alone. Tell no one about our conversation. As I left the room on unsteady legs, Thomas caught my arm. Isla, he murmured, his voice strained. Whatever you decide, I'm sorry. For everything. I pulled away without answering. In the elevator, I leaned against the wall, my reflection fractured in the mirrored panels, a woman I barely recognized, holding blood money and facing an impossible choice. The truth was clear now. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. And in justice, there are no black and white choices. The briefcase sat on my coffee table like a ticking bomb. I hadn't opened it, couldn't bring myself to look at the money that was supposed to buy my silence and safety. My apartment felt foreign around me, as if I'd stepped into someone else's life. My phone buzzed for the 5th time, Jasmine again. I'd been ignoring her calls since leaving the hotel, needing space to think, but time was running out. The clock on my wall read 10:37 p.m., less than an hour and a half until Martin's deadline. When my doorbell rang, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Through the peephole, I saw Mohammed standing in the hallway, concern etched across his face. Jasmine sent me, he said when I opened the door. She's worried sick. You promised to call her after the hotel. I stepped back to let him in. I needed to think. His eyes landed on the briefcase. What happened? The whole story spilled out. Martin's threats, the bribe, the midnight deadline. With each word, the weight on my chest grew lighter, as if speaking the truth aloud was itself a form of resistance. Mohammed listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly grave. This is way over our heads, Isla, he said when I finished. These people are dangerous. You need to go to the police. With what? I have no proof. It's my word against a respected managing partner and my ex-fiancé. I gestured to the briefcase. And now I've accepted money from them. How does that look? Better than being found dead in your apartment. His bluntness startled me. Martin Reeves doesn't make empty threats. My phone buzzed again, a text this time from an unknown number. Have you made your decision? That's him, I whispered. Mohammed read the message over my shoulder. Tell him you'll take the deal. Buy yourself some time. And then what? Run. Hide. Let them get away with everything. Yes, if it keeps you alive. I shook my head. I can't. Not after everything. This isn't about Thomas and Kimberly anymore. This is about... It was never just about them, I interrupted. It was about justice. About consequences for actions. About not letting people walk all over me. My phone rang. Kimberly. I stared at her name on the screen, torn between answering and ignoring her like I had Jasmine. "You should take it," Mohammed said quietly. I accepted the call, putting it on speaker. "What do you want?" "Where are you?" Kimberly's voice was tight with tension. "Are you home?" "Why?" "Listen to me very carefully. Martin's men are coming for you. They don't trust you to take the deal." My blood ran cold. "How do you know this?" "Because I'm with Thomas. He just got the order to clean out the office, destroy all evidence. They're tying up loose ends, Isla. That includes you." Mohammed was already moving, checking the locks on my windows. "How much time do we have?" he called. "Who's that?" Kimberly asked sharply. "Mohammed, he's here with me." "Good, you're not alone." She exhaled audibly. "I don't know how much time. Not long. You need to get out of there. Why are you helping me?" I couldn't keep the suspicion from my voice. "You chose Thomas over me. You chose the money." "And it was the biggest mistake of my life." Her voice cracked. "I can't undo what I did to you, but I can try to keep you safe." Mohammed returned to my side. "We need to go. Now." "Where?" I asked, panic rising. "If they're watching the building..." "My car's in the back alley. If we move fast, we might make it." Kimberly spoke urgently. "Isla, listen. Thomas made copies of everything. All the transactions, the shell companies, the client list. It's insurance. He has it on a drive." "Where?" "He won't tell me, but it exists. If you can find it..." The line went dead. "Kimberly?" I tried calling back. Nothing. "We don't have time," Mohammed insisted, grabbing my coat from the hook. "We need to move." A plan crystallized in my mind. The office. If Thomas is destroying evidence, the drive must be there. "Are you insane? That's exactly where they'll be." "It's also where the proof is." I grabbed the briefcase. This was never about running. It's about fighting back. 20 minutes later, we pulled up a block from Thomas's law firm. The building was mostly dark, just security lights and a few scattered offices still illuminated, including the corner office on the 14th floor, Thomas's. "This is suicide," Mohammed muttered as we approached the service entrance. "They could be waiting for us. Then go. I'll do this alone." He caught my arm. "That's not what I meant. I'm with you, Isla. I just want you to understand the risk." The security guard recognized me from my many visits during my engagement. "Ms. Barnes, didn't expect to see you here this late." "Forgot something in Thomas's office," I said, forcing a smile. "Wedding planning binder. Awkward, I know, but I need it for the vendor cancellations." He nodded sympathetically. "Go on up. Mr. Jensen's still here." The elevator ride was excruciating, each floor bringing us closer to confrontation. Mohammed squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, follow my lead if things go south." Thomas's office door was ajar, light spilling into the darkened hallway. I could hear papers rustling, drawers opening and closing. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. Thomas stood by the shredder, feeding documents into its hungry mouth. He looked up, freezing when he saw me. "Isla." His eyes darted to Mohammed, then to the briefcase in my hand. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for the truth." I stepped into the office. "And the drive." His face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Your insurance policy." "Where is it?" A tense silence stretched between us. Then, unexpectedly, Thomas laughed. A hollow, defeated sound. "You know what's funny? I was going to send it to you. Anonymous package, no return address." He sank into his chair. "Guess I'm not as heartless as you think." "Where is it, Thomas?" He reached for his watch, twisting the face to reveal a tiny compartment. Inside was a micro SD card no bigger than my fingernail. "Everything's here. Dates, amounts, names." He held it out, including Martin's clients. Very powerful, very dangerous people. As my fingers closed around the card, the office door slammed shut behind us. Martin stood there, a gun held casually at his side. "I'm disappointed, Thomas," he said softly. I thought you were smarter than this. Thunderous applause erupted in my mind as I realized this moment, this confrontation, was exactly what I'd been moving toward all along. Not revenge, justice. They never expected the real storm, I said, meeting Martin's cold gaze. And neither did I. Time slowed as Martin raised the gun. Mohammed stepped in front of me, but I gently moved him aside. This was my confrontation to face. You won't shoot us, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Not here in Thomas's office, where the evidence would be impossible to explain away. Martin's smile was cold. You've watched too many movies, Ms. Barnes. People disappear all the time. True, I conceded, but most people don't take precautions before meeting with criminals. I pulled out my phone, showing him the live broadcast icon. I've been streaming this entire conversation to a private server. If anything happens to us, it goes public automatically. His eyes narrowed, assessing whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. Jasmine had set it up after I texted her from the car, a simple app that would release everything if I didn't enter a code every hour. Additionally, I continued, copies of everything on this drive have already been sent to 3 separate attorneys with instructions to release them if any of us go missing. This part was a lie, but Martin couldn't know that. Thomas stared at me with something like admiration. You've thought of everything. I learned from the best, I replied without looking at him. Betrayal makes for an excellent teacher. Martin lowered the gun slightly. What do you want? For starters, you're going to call off your men who are looking for me and my sister. Your sister, Martin repeated, his expression shifting. Interesting that you'd include her in your protection. Family is complicated, I said simply. Mohammed moved toward the door, positioning himself to block any escape attempt. The police will be here in about 10 minutes. Anonymous tip about suspicious activity. Martin's composure cracked slightly. You're bluffing. Maybe, Mohammed shrugged. Want to wait and find out? The standoff stretched, tension crackling between us. I could almost see Martin calculating his options, weighing risks against rewards. Even if you expose us, he said finally, you'll never be safe. The people I work for don't forgive. I'm willing to take that chance. I set the briefcase on Thomas's desk, unlatched it. Stacks of cash lay inside, exactly as promised. I'm keeping this, by the way. Consider it compensation for emotional damages. Thomas made a strangled sound. That's $500,000. Yes, I agreed. A small fraction of what you stole, I imagine. A siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Martin's face hardened. This isn't over, he warned, backing toward the door. Actually, it is. I held up the micro SD card. Everything ends tonight. Mohammed blocked his path. You're not going anywhere. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Martin lunged, Mohammed deflected, and the gun clattered to the floor. They grappled, crashing into a bookshelf. I dove for the weapon, my fingers closing around cold metal, just as Thomas reached for it. Our eyes met over the gun. Don't, I warned. Something shifted in his expression, resignation perhaps, or the final death of whatever we'd once been to each other. I did love you, he said quietly. That part wasn't a lie. It doesn't matter anymore. The siren stopped outside the building. Footsteps pounded in the hallway. Not police, but security responding to the noise. It's over, Thomas, I said. All of it. He nodded slowly, stepping back with his hands raised. I know. The security guard burst in, taking in the scene with wide eyes. Martin pinned against the wall by Mohammed. Thomas standing with his hands up, me holding a gun. Ms. Barnes, he stammered. What's happening? I carefully set the gun down. These men are involved in a money laundering operation. The police are on their way. Don't let anyone leave. More sirens approached. This time it really was the police. In the chaos that followed, statements, evidence collection, arrests, I found myself sitting alone in the conference room, watching the sunrise through floor-to-ceiling windows. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving me hollow and exhausted. The door opened. Kimberly stood there, her face pale but resolute. "They found me at Thomas's apartment," she explained. "I've been giving a statement for hours." I nodded, too drained for anger. "Did you tell them everything?" "Yes." She hesitated, then sat across from me. "I'm probably going to jail, Isla." "Probably." Silence stretched between us, 2 decades of sisterhood and one terrible betrayal hanging in the balance. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said finally. "I wouldn't, in your position." "I don't know if I can," I admitted, "but I don't want to hate you anymore. It's exhausting." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "For what it's worth, I hate myself enough for both of us." A detective appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Barnes, we're ready for you now." I stood, gathering the last of my strength. "Which one of us?" "Both, actually, separately." Kimberly rose too, wiping her tears. "Isla, before we go in, thank you for the warning, for trying to protect me despite everything." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, for the first time since the betrayal. Behind the makeup and perfect hair had always been a girl desperate for validation, willing to sacrifice anything for approval, including me. "We'll talk," I said, "after all this is over." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a door left slightly ajar. In the hallway, Mohammed waited with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me, his fingers brushing mine. "You were incredible in there," he said quietly. "I had good backup." His smile was warm, genuine. "What happens now?" I took a sip of coffee, considering the question. The future stretched before me, unwritten and uncertain. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something else entirely. Not just justice for myself, but for others who might have been harmed. Now? I watched as Thomas was led away in handcuffs, our eyes meeting briefly across the room. No anger remained, just a quiet certainty that I had survived the worst betrayal and emerged stronger. Now I rebuild, but on my terms this time. Mohammed nodded, understanding in his eyes. "One day at a time." "One truth at a time," I corrected, feeling the first fragile tendrils of peace taking root where bitterness had reigned. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake. Perhaps the strongest justice, after all, was healing.
The security guard barely glanced at my fake cleaning service badge as I slipped into my father's funeral. Dark glasses and a borrowed maintenance uniform completed my disguise. A far cry from the tailored suits I usually wore as the newly appointed CEO of King Industries. "My name is Quinn, and I wasn't supposed to be here today." "Did you hear?" A whisper caught my attention as I pretended to dust a nearby windowsill. Richard left everything to her. The youngest. Can you believe it? "Shh, Kiara will hear you." I kept my head down, moving methodically through the funeral home as mourners filed in. My Aunt Kiara stood at the entrance, her designer black dress a stark contrast to my gray coveralls. She greeted each guest with practiced sympathy, while my siblings Bryce and Tessa flanked her like well-trained soldiers. "The nerve of her," Bryce muttered to Tessa. "Not even showing up to Dad's funeral. If only they knew I'd received their official notification banning me from attending barely 12 hours ago." The message came through Ibrahim, our family lawyer, his voice dripping with false regret. "The family thinks it's best if you keep your distance during this difficult time." I continued my careful circuit around the room, dusting surfaces that didn't need dusting. The front row of chairs remained empty, reserved for immediate family. My chair should have been there, between Tessa and Presley. "You should be grateful he gave you anything at all." The voice behind me was barely a whisper, but I recognized Ibrahim immediately. He'd cornered me near the flower arrangements, speaking low enough that only I could hear. "Some might say you don't deserve even that much." I turned slowly, keeping my face downturned. Funny, coming from someone who helped my father build his empire from nothing. "Things change, Quinn. People change." He adjusted his tie, a nervous tell I'd noticed over years of board meetings. "Your father made a mistake. We're simply trying to correct it." "By banning me from his funeral?" "By protecting the company's interests." He glanced around before continuing. Walk away now. Take a generous settlement before things get complicated. I smiled, though he couldn't see it behind my mask. You should check your email more often, Ibrahim. His face paled slightly. What do you mean? Let's just say Dad left me more than just the company. I moved past him, deliberately bumping his shoulder. He left me the truth. The service began, and I watched from the back as my family took their seats. Tessa kept glancing at my empty chair, worry creasing her forehead. She'd always been the sensitive one, caught between loyalty to our older brother and her love for me. Bryce stood to deliver the eulogy, his voice carrying across the hushed room. Our father was a visionary, a man who built an empire from nothing. He understood the importance of tradition, of keeping business in the family. His eyes flickered to my empty seat. Though some of his final decisions may have been questionable, we will honor his memory by protecting his legacy. I gripped my dusting cloth tighter, knuckles white beneath the thin fabric. If they only knew what I'd discovered in Dad's private files, the offshore accounts, the falsified records, the years of systematic theft orchestrated by the very people now mourning him so convincingly. Benjamin, Dad's oldest friend and board member, caught my eye from his seat near the back. A slight nod confirmed what we'd discussed earlier. Everything was in place. Tomorrow's board meeting would change everything. As the service concluded, Sierra approached the casket one last time. "Oh, Richard," she said loudly enough for nearby mourners to hear. "I promise we'll take care of everything. The company will stay in the right hands." I waited until the room had nearly emptied before approaching the casket myself. Pulling off my dark glasses, I looked down at my father's peaceful face. "Don't worry, Dad," I whispered. "I won't let them destroy everything you built. They think they've won, but they don't know about the evidence yet. They don't know what's coming." "Miss?" The security guard's voice startled me. "We're closing up now." I nodded, replacing my glasses. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Ibrahim watching me from the doorway, his phone pressed to his ear. Let him call whoever he wanted. By this time tomorrow, every secret, every lie, every betrayal would be exposed. The autumn air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I finally allowed myself a small smile. They thought banning me from Dad's funeral would break me. Instead, it had only strengthened my resolve. I had the evidence, I had the truth, and most importantly, I had nothing left to lose. Tomorrow, they would learn exactly why Dad had chosen me to lead his company. Tomorrow, they would understand that their biggest mistake wasn't just betraying him, it was underestimating me. The security code to Dad's private office hadn't changed. 0913. My birthday. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I entered, the familiar scent of leather and sandalwood washing over me. Even at midnight, the city lights streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated the space perfectly. "You shouldn't be here." Benjamin's voice crackled through my earpiece. "If anyone catches you..." "They won't," I interrupted, making my way to Dad's desk. "Besides, the board meeting's in 8 hours. We need what's in that safe." I ran my fingers along the bottom drawer's edge, finding the hidden latch just where Dad had shown me years ago. The panel popped open, revealing a keypad and fingerprint scanner. "Your father was nothing if not thorough," Benjamin commented. "He knew they'd try something like this." I pressed my thumb to the scanner, holding my breath. A soft click, and the safe door swung open. Inside, I found exactly what Dad promised would be waiting: a leather-bound ledger and a USB drive. But something else caught my eye. A sealed envelope with my name written in Dad's distinctive scrawl. My phone buzzed. Tessa's name flashed across the screen. "Quinn?" Her voice trembled. "Are you really going through with tomorrow?" "You know I am." I tucked the ledger and drive into my bag. "You could still stand with me, Tess. Bryce says he has proof Dad wasn't mentally competent when he changed the will. He's going to present it at the meeting." I laughed softly. "Let me guess. Ibrahim helped him get it?" "Quinn, please." She paused. "Just take the settlement they're offering. The company isn't worth losing your family over." They stopped being family the moment they banned me from Dad's funeral. I opened the envelope, pulling out a single sheet of paper. "I have to go." "Wait." I ended the call, focusing on Dad's letter. As I read, my hands began to shake. My dearest Quinn, if you're reading this, they've already moved against you. The ledger contains everything, every transaction, every secret account. But the real proof is in the encrypted files on the drive. The password is Phoenix Rising, your childhood nickname. Be careful who you trust, even Ibrahim. The office door clicked. I shoved the letter into my bag and ducked behind a filing cabinet just as voices filled the room. Search everything, Shara commanded. That little brat must have found something, or she wouldn't be so confident about tomorrow's meeting. The safe, Bryce's voice. We need to check the safe. I held my breath as footsteps approached the desk. The hidden panel clicked open. It's empty, Bryce growled. She's already been here. Impossible, Ibrahim cut in. The security logs show no entry tonight. I smiled, grateful for Benjamin's help in looping the security footage. Then where is it? Kiara's voice rose. Where's the evidence she keeps threatening us with? Maybe there isn't any, Presley suggested. Maybe she's bluffing. No, Ibrahim said quietly. Richard was too smart. He would have left something. Then find it, Ciara snapped. We've worked too hard, planned too carefully to let that girl ruin everything. Do you know how many years we spent building those offshore accounts? How many strings I had to pull to keep the auditors away? My phone chose that moment to vibrate loudly against the filing cabinet. The room fell silent. What was that? Bryce demanded. I didn't wait. Clutching my bag, I burst from my hiding spot and ran for the door. Bryce lunged for me, but I was faster. My elbow connected with his solar plexus, sending him stumbling backward. Stop her, Kiara screamed. I sprinted down the hallway toward the emergency stairs, their footsteps thundering behind me. Pushing through the stairwell door, I took the steps 2 at a time, my heart pounding in sync with my feet. Quinn, Ibrahim's voice echoed above me. Think about what you're doing. 3 floors down, I crashed through the exit into the parking garage. Benjamin's car idled exactly where we'd planned, engine running. Go. I jumped into the passenger seat as shouts echoed across the garage. Benjamin floored it, tires squealing as we shot toward the exit. In the rearview mirror, I watched Bryce and Ibrahim grow smaller, their figures illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. Ciara's words rang in my ears. We've worked too hard. Did you get everything? Benjamin asked once we were safely away. I patted my bag, feeling the hard edges of the ledger and drive. Everything and more. They were there, Benjamin. I heard them admit to all of it. The offshore accounts, the covered-up audits, everything. Good. He glanced at me. Are you ready for tomorrow? I pulled out my phone, quickly typing out a message to Tessa. You wanted proof our family isn't what it seems? Come to my office at 7 a.m., bring a recorder. I'm ready, I said, watching the city lights blur past. It's time they learned what happens when you underestimate the Phoenix. 7 a.m. sharp, just like I asked. I looked up from Dad's ledger as Tessa slipped into my office, her designer heels silent on the plush carpet. Did you bring the recorder? She pulled a small device from her purse, placing it on my desk with trembling fingers. Quinn, what's going on? Bryce came home last night looking like he'd seen a ghost. Listen. I pressed play on my phone, and Ciara's voice filled the room. Do you know how many years we spent building those offshore accounts? How many strings I had to pull to keep the auditors away? Tessa sank into the chair across from me, her face draining of color. How did you get this? Last night. They were looking for these. I pushed the ledger and USB drive across the desk. Dad left them for me. Every transaction, every secret account, it's all here. Ms. King? My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Ibrahim is here to see you. Perfect timing. I straightened my blazer. Send him in. Ibrahim strode in, his usual confidence faltering slightly when he saw Tessa. This is a private matter. Stay, I told Tessa, who had half risen from her chair. You'll want to hear this. Ibrahim's jaw tightened. Quinn, Be reasonable. The board meeting is in an hour. Take the settlement offer. $20 million, no questions asked. Walk away from this. Like you walked away from Dad? I opened the ledger. Tell me, Ibrahim, does the board know about the shell company in Grand Cayman? The one you and Ciara used to funnel nearly $40 million over the past 3 years? His face remained impassive, but a bead of sweat traced down his temple. Those are serious accusations. They're not accusations. I turned the ledger around. They're facts. Dad kept meticulous records. He knew what you were doing. All of you. Quinn, Tessa whispered. Is this true? Before Ibrahim could respond, the door burst open. Presley rushed in, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Quinn, stop this. Please. Why? I stood slowly. Because you're involved too? Because Aunt Kiara promised you a piece of the pie if you helped them push me out? You don't understand. Presley ran a hand through his hair. She has dirt on everyone. She's been planning this for years, gathering information, waiting for the right moment. Ibrahim shot him a warning look. Presley, that's enough. No. Presley's voice cracked. I'm done lying. Quinn, Ciara, she's the one who convinced your father to change his medication dosage. She said it would help him sleep, but... Shut up. Ibrahim grabbed Presley's arm. My blood ran cold. What did you just say? Tessa's recorder clicked softly in the silence. The board meeting starts in 45 minutes. Ibrahim said quietly. Think carefully about your next move, Quinn. Some doors can't be unopened. Get out. My voice was steel. Both of you. After they left, Tessa played back the recording, her hands shaking. Quinn, if what Presley said is true, about Dad's medication... I know. I checked my watch. The question is, whose side are you on? She stood, smoothing her skirt. Bryce, he doesn't know about any of this. He really believes Dad wasn't thinking clearly when he changed the will, and now you know why he thought that. I gathered the evidence into my briefcase. Are you with me? Tessa's phone buzzed. A text from Kiara. She showed me the screen. Make sure she takes the deal. Remember what we discussed. What did you discuss? I asked quietly. She promised to fund my fashion line. Tessa's voice was barely audible. Said she'd invest $5 million if I helped convince you to step down. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. At least now we know your price. Quinn, the board meeting starts in 30 minutes. I headed for the door. Make your choice, Tessa. But remember, once I walk into that room, there's no going back. Wait. She grabbed my arm. There's something else you need to know. Bryce, he found Dad's original will. The one from before. He's planning to present it at the meeting. Let him. I pulled away. The only thing that will prove is how desperate they've become. As I walked toward the boardroom, Benjamin fell into step beside me. Everything ready? Almost. I handed him a USB drive, a copy of Dad's files. If anything happens to me in there, it won't. He pocketed the drive. But I'll be ready. We reached the boardroom doors. Through the glass, I could see them all. Ciara at the head of the table, Ibrahim whispering in her ear, Bryce clutching a folder I assumed contained the old will. Presley sat alone at the far end, staring at his hands. Ready? Benjamin asked. I thought of Dad's letter. Be careful who you trust. But he'd also called me Phoenix Rising, named for my ability to emerge stronger from every setback. Ready. I pushed open the doors, stepping into the lion's den with my head held high. Let them bring their forged wills and empty threats. I had the truth. And the truth was about to set this whole house of cards on fire. The boardroom fell silent as I took my seat at the table. 12 pairs of eyes watched my every move. Board members who'd known me since childhood, now sizing me up like vultures circling prey. Before we begin, Ciara stood, smoothing her silk blouse. I believe Bryce has something to present. Actually, I cut in, I'd like to start with a story. I connected my laptop to the projector. A story about family, trust, and $40 million in missing company funds. Ibrahim's pen clattered to the floor. Ms. King, there are proper channels. Like the channels you use to funnel money through shell companies? I clicked to the first slide, a detailed transaction history. Or perhaps we should discuss the creative accounting that kept these transfers hidden from our auditors? These accusations are ridiculous, Chiara snapped, but her face had lost its color. The boardroom door opened and Tessa slipped in, taking the empty seat beside me. Chiara's eyes narrowed at the recorder in her hand. Bryce, I turned to my brother. You wanted to present something? The original will, perhaps? He straightened, pulling documents from his folder. Yes, a will that proves Dad wasn't in his right mind when he what? I interrupted. When he discovered that his own sister was slowly poisoning him with altered medication? The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Bryce's papers slipped from his fingers, scattering across the table. That's absurd. Chiara stood so quickly her chair toppled backward. You can't prove... I pressed play on my phone. Presley's recorded voice filled the room. Chiara's the one who convinced your father to change his medication dosage. Presley, Ibrahim warned, but the damage was done. Oh, I have more. I clicked through slides of bank statements, offshore accounts, and damning emails. 5 years of systematic theft, all orchestrated by the people who claimed to love Dad most. You ungrateful little... Chiara lunged forward, but Benjamin blocked her path. Ms. King, one of the senior board members spoke up. These are serious allegations. Do you have concrete proof? I placed Dad's ledger on the table. Every transaction, every account, every conspiracy, documented in Dad's own handwriting. He knew what they were doing. He was gathering evidence before they... I swallowed hard. Before they killed him. This is outrageous. Ibrahim stood. You can't possibly believe... Sit down, Ibrahim. Tessa's voice cut through the chaos. She placed her recorder on the table. I think the board should hear what you said in Quinn's office this morning. Bryce looked between us, confusion etched on his face. Tessa, what are you doing? The right thing, finally. She pressed play, and Ibrahim's threatening voice filled the room. The board members exchanged glances. One reached for his phone, presumably to call security or the police. Wait. Presley stood, his voice shaking. There's more. I helped them. Ciara promised me shares in the company if I... He couldn't finish. If you helped them kill our father? I supplied, my voice ice cold. No. He looked desperate. I didn't know about the medication. I just helped with the accounts. Please, I can prove it. I kept records of everything. Ciara laughed, a sharp, dangerous sound. You really think you've won, don't you, Quinn? That Daddy's little girl has outsmarted us all? She pulled an envelope from her bag. But you forgot one thing. I know about Tokyo. My heart stopped. You're bluffing. Am I? She slid the envelope across the table. 3 years ago, you made a mistake. A big one. One that could ruin not just you, but this entire company. I stared at the envelope, my throat dry. The Tokyo incident had been buried, or so I thought. Take the deal, Quinn. Kara smiled. Walk away with your $20 million. Or I release these documents and everything, including Dad's precious legacy, burns. The room held its breath. I could feel Tessa's questioning gaze, see Bryce's confused expression. Even Benjamin looked uncertain. Slowly, I reached for the envelope. That's right, Kira purred. Be smart, like your father never was. I opened the envelope, pulled out the contents, and smiled. These are fake. What? Kiara's smile faltered. I said, these are fake. I held up the documents. Because I'm the one who handled the Tokyo incident. These documents are printed on paper we didn't start using until last year. Amateur mistake, really. The color drained from Ciara's face as I stood. You know what your biggest mistake was? I looked around the table, thinking I was just Daddy's little girl. But Dad didn't choose me because I was his favorite. He chose me because I was the only one smart enough to see through all of you. Security guards appeared at the doorway, summoned by the board member's earlier call. "Mr. Ibrahim," one of them said, "please come with us. The police would like to ask you some questions." As they led Ibrahim and Shiara away, I caught Bryce's eye. "The original will you were going to show?" Dad's signature was forged. Check the date. He was in the hospital that day. I have proof of that too. The board members huddled together, whispering urgently. But I already knew I'd won. Dad had taught me well. In business, like in chess, you don't just play the game, you play the players. "The police want to interview you again." Benjamin handed me a coffee as I stared out my office window at the city below. 3 days had passed since the board meeting, and the fallout was still spreading like ripples in a pond. "Let them wait." I turned as Tessa entered, her eyes red-rimmed. "How's Bryce?" "They're holding him for questioning." She collapsed onto the leather sofa. "He keeps saying he didn't know about Dad's medication, about any of it." "Do you believe him?" "I don't know what to believe anymore." She pulled out her phone, showing me the headlines. "King Industries Scandal, Family Empire Rocked by Fraud Allegations." A knock interrupted us. Presley stood in the doorway, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "They're releasing Ciara on bail." "Already?" Benjamin straightened. "That's not possible." "She has connections." Presley stepped inside, closing the door. "And she's angry, Quinn. I just got this." He held up his phone, displaying a text. "Tell my dear niece to watch her back. The game isn't over." I laughed softly. She still thinks this is a game. "Quinn?" Tessa's voice was urgent. "What if she really does have something on you? The Tokyo incident is handled." I opened my desk drawer, pulling out a thick file. Everything that happened in Tokyo is in here. Every decision, every document, every signature, all legitimate. I kept it clean specifically because I knew someone might try to use it against me someday. But then why did she? Because she was desperate. I sat behind my desk. And desperate people make mistakes. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Meeting. Tonight. The cemetery. Come alone or the real Tokyo files go public." "She's bluffing," Benjamin said, reading over my shoulder. "Probably." I stood gathering my coat. "But I'm done hiding." "Quinn, no." Tessa grabbed my arm. "It's too dangerous. Let the police handle it." "The police can't protect the company's reputation." I checked my watch. "Besides, I have a few surprises left." "Then I'm coming with you." Presley stepped forward. "I owe you that much." "No." I touched his shoulder. "You've done enough by testifying. Stay here with Tessa. Benjamin, I need you to get those documents to the DA's office." "Quinn?" Benjamin started. "Trust me." I smiled. Dad didn't call me Phoenix Rising for nothing. The cemetery was silent as I walked between the graves, my heels sinking slightly into the damp earth. Dad's fresh headstone gleamed in the moonlight, and beside it stood Shara, looking perfectly composed despite her recent jail stay. "I didn't think you'd come alone," she called out. "Disappointed?" "Impressed, actually." She pulled out an envelope. "Maybe you're not as soft as I thought. The Tokyo files are fake, Ciara. We both know that. Do we?" She smiled. "Did you really think your father only kept records in that little ledger of his? That he didn't have other hiding places? Other secrets?" A twig snapped behind me. I turned to see Ibrahim emerging from the shadows, looking considerably less polished than usual. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "Both of you." "The only mistake," a new voice rang out, "was thinking you could get away with this." Bryce stepped into view, followed by 2 police officers. My brother's face was haggard, but his eyes were clear. "What is this?" Chiara demanded. "Justice." Bryce moved to stand beside me. "They showed me everything, Aunt Ciara. The real records, the medication logs, the security footage from Dad's house the night he died." "You're choosing her?" Ciara spat. "After everything I did for you? You mean after you manipulated me?" Bryce's voice cracked. Used me to try to steal my sister's inheritance? Made me think Dad had lost his mind? Ibrahim moved suddenly, reaching into his jacket. The police officers drew their weapons, but he only pulled out a USB drive. "It's over," he said, tossing it to me. "Everything's on there. Dates, accounts, recordings. Ciara's original plans, all of it." "Ibrahim," Kiara shrieked. "You traitor." "No." He looked at her sadly. "I'm just tired of the lies." As the officers moved in with handcuffs, I picked up the envelope Ciara had dropped. Inside were photos, not from Tokyo, but of Dad in his final days, looking frail and confused. She'd been documenting the effects of the tampered medication. "Quinn?" Bryce touched my shoulder. "I'm sorry, I should have seen it sooner." "We all should have." I watched as the police led Ciara and Ibrahim away. But Dad knew. That's why he left everything to me. He knew I'd find the truth. "What happens now?" I looked at Dad's headstone, remembering his words. "A phoenix always rises from the ashes, stronger than before." "Now?" I turned to my brother. "Now we rebuild. Together." The cemetery fell quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Like peace. Like justice. Like a new beginning. "The board is getting restless." Benjamin dropped a stack of newspapers on my desk. Each headline screamed about the King Industries scandal, our stock price, the pending criminal charges. "Let them squirm." I clicked through my emails, pausing at one from the district attorney. "Ciara's refusing to cooperate. Says she'll only speak to me." "Don't even think about it," Tessa called from the doorway. She entered, followed by Bryce and Presley. "She's trying to manipulate you again." "Maybe." I stood, straightening my blazer. "But I want to hear what she has to say." "Quinn," Bryce stepped forward, "you don't owe her anything." "This isn't about owing." I gathered my things. "It's about ending this, once and for all." The detention center's visiting room was cold and sterile. Kiara sat across the table, her designer outfit replaced by a standard-issue jumpsuit. Still, she managed to look elegant, her spine straight as steel. "I knew you'd come." She smiled. "Always the dutiful niece." "Save it." I placed Dad's ledger on the table. "You wanted to talk, so talk." "Did you ever wonder why your father chose you?" She leaned forward. "Not Bryce, not Tessa. You." "Because I wasn't corrupt?" She laughed, a hollow sound. "Because you're exactly like him. Ruthless, calculating, willing to sacrifice anything for power." "I'm nothing like you." "No?" She raised an eyebrow. "Then why did you really go to Tokyo 3 years ago?" "The truth, Quinn. Not the sanitized version in your precious files." My blood ran cold. "How do you know about the real deal?" She smirked. "Your father told me, right before I started adjusting his medication." The door burst open. Bryce stormed in, followed by security guards. "That's enough." "Oh, look." Ciara's eyes gleamed. "The prodigal son returns. Did you tell him, Quinn? About what really happened in Tokyo?" "Shut up," I snapped. "She went to close a deal," Bryce said. "Everyone knows that." "She went to bury one." Ciara's voice dripped venom. "A deal that would have bankrupted us if it had gone public. Your perfect sister covered up a massive fraud to save the company, just like Daddy taught her." The guards moved to remove her, but Bryce held up his hand. "Is it true?" I met his gaze. "The company was going to fall. Dad was already sick. I did what I had to do." "By breaking the law?" "By protecting our legacy." I stood so quickly my chair toppled. "Everything I did for this family." "Just like me." Ciara smiled. "We're not so different after all." "The difference," I leaned across the table, "is that I never killed anyone." Her smile faltered. "Neither did I. Your father's death was unfortunate, but necessary." "Get her out of here," Bryce told the guards. As they led Kiara away, she called over her shoulder. Ask her about the missing files, Bryce. Ask her what else she's hiding. In the hallway, Bryce grabbed my arm. Tell me she's lying. About Tokyo? No. I pulled away. But everything I did was legal. Barely, but legal. And the missing files she mentioned? Don't exist. I started walking. She's trying to drive a wedge between us. Again. Quinn. His voice stopped me. I need to know. Everything Dad taught you? Everything you learned? Are you really any different from them? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Benjamin's voice was urgent. The board called an emergency meeting. They're voting to remove you as CEO. What? They can't. They can if they have proof of misconduct. Someone sent them files about Tokyo. My heart stopped. When? Meeting starts in 30 minutes. I looked at Bryce, whose face had hardened. Did you know about this? The board approached me this morning. He wouldn't meet my eyes. They want me to take over. And you're considering it. You lied to me, Quinn. About Tokyo, about everything. I protected our company. My voice echoed in the empty hallway. Everything I did, every secret I kept, was to save what Dad built. And that makes it right? Security cameras watched us from every corner. In one of them, I caught my reflection. Power suit, perfect hair, Dad's determined expression mirrored on my face. Maybe Kiara was right. Maybe I was more like them than I wanted to admit. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes, Bryce said quietly. If you can't prove everything you did was legal, they'll vote you out. And this time I won't stop them. He walked away, leaving me alone in the hallway. My phone buzzed again, Benjamin asking what to do. But I was already moving, my mind racing through possibilities. Dad had taught me more than just business. He'd taught me survival. The phoenix rises from ashes, but first it has to burn. I pulled out my phone, dialing a number I'd hoped never to use. It's me, I said when the line connected. Remember that favor you owe me from Tokyo? I need it now. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The boardroom doors swung open with a bang. Every head turned as I strode in, 5 minutes before the vote. Ladies and gentlemen, I placed a thick folder on the table. I believe you have some concerns about Tokyo. Ms. King, the lead director frowned. We received evidence of serious misconduct. Fabricated evidence. I began distributing documents. Here's what really happened in Tokyo. Every transaction, every decision, verified by independent auditors and signed off by regulatory authorities. But the files we received, another director started, were sent by my Aunt Ciara from prison. I clicked on the projector. Here's the surveillance footage of her associate sending those files. And here, I placed a USB drive on the table, is proof that those documents were created last week using forged timestamps. Bryce picked up one of the reports, his eyes widening. These signatures, they're from the Japanese Financial Services Agency, because everything we did was legal. I met each board member's gaze. Difficult, yes. Complicated, absolutely. But legal. Then why hide it? Bryce demanded. Because sometimes protecting a company means keeping certain details private. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. As Dad explained here, Dad's voice filled the room. The Tokyo situation is delicate. Quinn handled it perfectly. Saved the company without breaking a single law. That's why she'll take over when I'm gone. She understands that leadership isn't just about following rules. It's about knowing which rules matter most. The board members exchanged glances. Bryce's face was unreadable. There's more. I nodded to Benjamin, who opened the door. A distinguished Japanese businessman entered, bowing slightly. Mr. Tanaka. I smiled. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Ms. King. He addressed the board. 3 years ago, your company faced a crisis in Tokyo. Ms. King's actions not only saved both our companies, but strengthened the relationship between them. Everything she did was honorable and legal. And the missing files Kiara mentioned? Bryce asked. Don't exist. Tanaka handed him a document. This is the complete record, certified by our legal team. There are no missing files because there was nothing to hide. The lead director cleared his throat. Ms. King, while this explains Tokyo, there's still the matter of recent events. Your family's criminal activities? Which I exposed. I interrupted. Every illegal transaction, every manipulated record, every conspiracy. I brought it all to light. Yes, my methods were unconventional. Yes, I kept certain things quiet until the right moment. But everything I did was to protect this company and honor my father's legacy. By deceiving your own brother? Bryce stood. By letting us think. By doing what needed to be done. I slammed my hand on the table. You want to know why Dad chose me? Because I understand that sometimes protecting what matters means making impossible choices. The room fell silent. Outside, the city stretched endlessly, just as it had the night I'd found Dad's ledger. The vote, the lead director finally said, was called to determine your fitness to lead this company. Given this new evidence, I have one more thing to add. I pulled out a final document. Dad's last letter to the board, written the day before he died. Benjamin? Benjamin stepped forward. I witnessed him write this. He knew what was coming. I began to read. To my board of directors, if you're reading this, 2 things have happened. First, I'm dead, likely not from natural causes. Second, Quinn has uncovered the truth about my murder and the conspiracy within our company. She's done exactly what I knew she would. Protected our legacy while bringing justice to those who betrayed us. This is why I chose her. Not because she's my daughter, but because she has something the others don't. The wisdom to know when to fight in the light and when to work in shadows. The strength to make impossible choices. The courage to stand alone. My voice cracked on the last words. Bryce's face had softened, understanding finally dawning in his eyes. I moved to cancel the vote. The lead director said quietly, All in favor? Hands raised around the table, even Bryce's. Quinn, he said as the board members filed out. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you. No. I gathered my documents. You should have questioned me. That's what Dad taught us. Trust, but verify. I just verified better than anyone expected. What happens now? Now? I looked at the city beyond the windows, at the empire Dad had built and entrusted to me. Now we rebuild. The right way this time. No more secrets, no more shadows. Together? He held out his hand. I took it, remembering Dad's words about impossible choices. Sometimes the hardest choice is knowing when to stand alone, and when to let others stand with you. Together, I agreed. But first, there's one more thing we need to do. What's that? I smiled, thinking of Kiara in her prison cell, still believing she had leverage over me. We need to show everyone what happens when you underestimate a phoenix. The sun was rising over the city, painting the sky in shades of fire. It was time for a new day, a new chapter, and this time we'd write it in the light. Guilty on all counts. The judge's gavel echoed through the courtroom. I watched Kiara's shoulders stiffen as the verdict was read. Murder, conspiracy, fraud. The list went on. She turned to face me before they led her away, her eyes burning with the same intensity I'd seen at Dad's funeral. You think this is over? No. I stood, straightening my jacket. This is just justice. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Bryce appeared at my side, shielding me from the cameras as we made our way to the waiting car. Ms. King, how does it feel to see your aunt convicted? Any comment on the company's future? What about the rumors of a family reconciliation? I paused at the car door. King Industries isn't just about family anymore. It's about integrity, transparency, and doing what's right. That's my father's true legacy. The drive back to the office was quiet. Bryce scrolled through messages on his phone. Stock's up 12% since the verdict. People love a good redemption story. I smiled. How's Tessa doing with her fashion line launch? Better than expected. Turns out having the King Industries backing means more than Ciara's empty promises. The elevator opened directly into the executive floor, where Benjamin waited with Presley. Their faces told me something was wrong. What happened? Ibrahim. Benjamin handed me his tablet. He's talking to reporters, says he has proof you knew about the Tokyo cover-up long before you claimed. Let him talk. I walked into my office, Dad's old office. Everything's documented, remember? It's not that simple, Presley said. He's claiming there's video evidence from the night Dad died. My hand froze over Dad's old desk. That's impossible. Unless... Bryce stepped forward. Unless someone was recording that night. I met his eyes. You know what happened that night. I told you everything. Did you? He pulled out his phone, playing a video. On the screen, I saw myself entering Dad's hospital room the night he died. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. Where did you get this? It was in Dad's personal files, the ones you didn't know about. Bryce's voice was gentle. You were there the night he died, Quinn. Why didn't you tell us? I sank into Dad's chair, the weight of that night crushing down again. Because he asked me not to. The room fell silent. I pulled out my own phone, accessing a protected folder. Here's what really happened that night. The video played. Dad in his hospital bed, looking frail but clear-eyed. His voice was weak but determined. Quinn, listen carefully. Ciara's been poisoning me. Slowly, carefully. I have proof, but I can't move against her yet. You need to wait. Let them think they've won, then expose everything. Dad, we should call the police. No? The company wouldn't survive the immediate scandal. You need to be smart about this. Strategic. He coughed. Promise me you'll protect our legacy. The right way. I promise. The video ended. Bryce's face had gone pale. You knew. All this time, you knew how he died. And I did exactly what he asked. I stood. I waited. I gathered evidence. I protected the company while building an airtight case against them. Why show us this now? Presley asked. Because it's finally over. Really over. I walked to the window, looking out at the city Dad had conquered. Ibrahim can release whatever he wants. The truth is already out there. Ms. King? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. The new board members are here for orientation. Send them in. I turned to face my family, what was left of it. Ready to show them how we do things now? Bryce nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. The right way. The new board members filed in. Young, ambitious, ethical professionals Dad would have approved of. As I began my presentation, my phone buzzed with a message from Tessa. Just visited Ciara. She's finally talking about everything. Healing starts now. I looked around the room, at Bryce taking notes, at Benjamin's proud smile, at Presley's determined face. Dad's words echoed in my mind. Protect our legacy. The right way. The phoenix hadn't just risen from the ashes. It had built something new. Something stronger. Not an empire built on secrets and lies, but a legacy founded on truth and justice. Welcome to the new King Industries. I addressed the board. Let me tell you about our future. Outside, the city stretched endless and bright, full of possibilities. Dad had taught me how to fight in shadows, but I'd learned something he never could, how to win in the light. The truth hadn't just set us free. It had made us stronger than we'd ever been in darkness. And that was the greatest legacy of all. Now, I smiled at my family, my team, my future. Let's begin. The sun streamed through the windows, and for the first time since Dad's funeral, I felt truly worthy of the name he'd given me. Phoenix Rising. Not because I'd burned everything down, but because I'd built something better from the ashes. That was the real victory. That was the true revenge.